Sorry to keep you waiting. You see the open box right there. That open box is for the one Vish Kumaran, who will be joining us shortly. But we had to get things started. It is already 10 o'clock on the East Coast, and you know that this show is bound to go 2+ hours. So, that being said, had to get us going. Got my guy Larry here with me. We're going to start things off. We're going to talk about the divisional round, which I think is the best weekend in football. You've got 4 great games Saturday and Sunday, fully loaded schedules. Cannot wait for this weekend. Cannot wait for the 49ers to get their weekend, or their playoffs rather, going this weekend. Looking forward to that. There's a ton to talk about, and we're going to talk about it all next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And you see Larry there. Spot open for Vish. He'll be joining shortly. Larry, my guy, what's going on, man?
What's going on, Jesse? Good to see you, man. Thanks to everybody in the chat, you too, Jay, and hopefully Vish will jump in here. I'm excited to talk about the Niners. I was down there today. I was down there yesterday. I was down there on Tuesday. And there's a lot of my optimism for this game is grown over the last 3 days. I'll say that.
Good. I couldn't help but to think about you when the Packers beat the Dallas Cowboys, and I was like, oh man, Larry is in full-on panic mode the way that he was talking last week. I'm curious to see how this show is going to go. Talking through it for the week, being around the team probably gave you some confidence. What did you come away with today being at the facility?
Well, I mean, the news of the day, we could start there, which is Cleveland Farrell, of course, officially is out, and Dre Greenlaw is officially questionable, but I did briefly talk to Dre at his locker, and he's going. He's going Saturday night. So he's going to go, and Eric Armstead's back, and he's going to go, and the 49ers are confident. They're not cocky, but, you know, the one thing that really has crept up is that the 49ers, it kind of reminds me of 83 to 84 for some of you older Niner fans, where that the Niners got screwed in 83 by some bad calls at RFK Stadium, and they were just hell-bent in 84 to win it all, and they came out and they were awesome and they won it all. Just from walking around the room and talking to some of the guys and listening to what Trent Williams had to say, you know, he said, hey, last year was so painful and we just wanted to kind of speed through the regular season and get to this point and get back to this point. So the Niners have an incredible resolve, Jesse, to not just get here, but to finish the deal. And there's a sobering seriousness about Christian McCaffrey, about Brock Purdy, about coming from Trent Williams, Kyle Shanahan, and others that makes me feel confident that they're going to fire their best effort, whatever that is, Saturday.
Now, you had an interesting question for Kyle Shanahan, and this actually came up on one of my streams. Somebody super chatted it yesterday when I was doing Behind Enemy Lines, and I'm glad you asked the question. You had asked him if they won the coin toss, would they take the ball and try to just take the air out of the room for the Green Bay Packers, who started out hot last week. They've been playing some good football. And what was his answer to that?
Well, he gave me the first answer. I said, would you consider not going with the ball, not taking the ball like you normally do? Normally you defer to the second half. Would you consider, if you won the coin toss, not doing that and taking the ball and making Jordan Love stand on the sidelines for maybe 15, 20 minutes as you have a long first drive? And he's like, no. He gave me like a one-word no. And then somebody else tried to jump in, but I kind of followed up and I'm like, well, can you kind of go through why you feel that way, why you are strong-minded about it? And he just feels that the advantage, Jesse, is that if you score in that final possession of the first half, and then you get the ball to begin the third quarter, that you get to kind of lap your opponent. And I guess I would push back on that. because I think it's how you don't know how many possessions there might be. I mean, you could have the entire first quarter could be your drive, and the entire second quarter could be their drive, and you might get the ball back, with like 30 seconds left for your second possession, or you could go 3 and out. They could go 3 and out. You could go 3 and out, and the possessions kind of get jumbled, and there's several in there. So I don't know. I'm not sure what he's looking at, but he clearly feels strongly that that's the better way to run the game, and he likes getting the ball with a period of time, let's say in the second quarter, anywhere between 2-minute drive to 6 minutes in the quarter, and just kind of concocting his final drive of the second quarter as if it's the final drive of the half, and then get the ball to begin the third quarter. So that's his comfort zone, and he clearly wants to stay in it. And he doesn't sound like he's open-minded to what I was suggesting, which is, man, I mean, there's only been 3 games all year that you didn't lead at halftime, and you didn't win any of those games. So to me, Jordan Love, they took the ball first and drove down the field against Dallas because Dallas is really good with the lead and really not when they don't take a lead. I don't know that the Niners are like Dallas, but they're kind of like Dallas. They're a little bit of a front runner. They haven't necessarily been this awesome come from behind team, but he doesn't see it that way. So it was interesting to see how resolute he was in his spot, in his position.
Yeah, it is interesting, but you kind of expected that, right? I had heard that he was talking about fake punts as well, why he doesn't run them. So, I mean, he's not afraid to tell you and walk you through why, he's quote unquote conservative or what have you, but he has his reasons, and I get it. I mean, if you can get the ball in the first half and then also start with it in the second half, that does feel like a major advantage. It's almost like you're guaranteeing one more possession by doing it that way. So I totally understand it. I guess my issue is that if you get it at the end of the first half, you have to have time and you have to be aggressive and try to put up points. And if you can't do that, or you don't get it with enough time, then you've kind of burned it a little bit. But I totally understand his reasoning. It makes sense to me. And I also don't think that they should fear the Packers enough to where they can't give them the ball. And, oh my gosh, what if they score first? Can we come back? If they scored first, it's literally the first possession of the game. You got plenty of time to come back. So it's not the end of the world. So I actually like it. I prefer getting the ball to start the second half. What do you prefer to do?
I would as well, but in like this particular situation, I love the idea of getting a lead, and the Niners have been so good at scoring on their first possession. I believe the 49ers lead the NFL in points on the first possession of the game. And so I just think that, the one time that you could, think of that Ram drive, where the first, and I don't know if they took the ball or not, but they, on the Niners first drive, I think it was like 18 plays. This was when the Niners were reeling. It was like a Thursday night game a couple years ago, and they came out with like an 18-play drive, and they ran the heck out of it. And
that was a Monday night game.
Was that? Oh, there you go.
Monday night game, and then they did in the NFC Championship game in 2021.
So I kind of liked the idea. Well, here's the other thing. So you warm up before the game. Well, why not make Jordan Love stand there for 20 minutes, maybe in rain, as you're running the ball and getting more first downs? I kind of think that playing complementary football might be the key to winning this game. And I don't know. I would love to see Jordan Love he was in a great rhythm at the beginning of the Dallas game. I just don't want to see him in that same great rhythm in the beginning of this game.
Well, I got to say, fish and chips, I hope you took the under. I don't know where the money was at, where you guys laid
No, it's
all
the
your
over,
money,
right? You're 9 minutes and 25 minutes into this.
No. He
seconds.
dropped this. He dropped this like 3.5 minutes ago. So technically, I mean, we're going off the time that he dropped it.
Very close.
You met the under. You barely met the under. So glad we made it. What's up, Vish? Happy to have you. Looking good. Save the topics for you. Yeah, listen, let's get into these divisional games. And this was a lot of fun last week. By the way, I knew this going in, And I tried to make my picks with confidence last week as if this has not been the case with me. I'm awful at picking games. That is not my strength at all. So whatever I say, if you feel strongly the opposite way, you're probably right. Go with your heart. Don't go with mine, because I have no idea when it comes to picking these games. I've never been good at it. Fantasy football, pretty good at. Picking games, not so great. So that being said, we're going to do it again. Larry, you did a fantastic job picking the Green Bay Packers. Kudos to you. Like I said, it probably sent you into a bit of a tizzy, worried about this week's game, especially because the Packers blew them out the way that they did. So I'm sure that made you a little bit nervous. We talked a little bit about it, but let's start with the AFC first, and we'll work our way to the San Francisco 49ers. Let's start with the number 1 seed over there, making their playoff debut. Doing so in a game where Mark Andrews is questionable, but was a full participant in practice yesterday and today. And then Marlon Humphrey, surprisingly, is a scratch. He's not going to play. That's a big miss for them. But they are making their debut against D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud, the Houston Texans. Vish, we'll start with you.
Oh,
Ravens, a 9.5-point favorite. Who do you have winning this game?
look, CJ Stroud is arguably having the best rookie quarterback season I've ever seen. We'll see. He looks like a real superstar right now. He looks like one of those like so special quarterbacks that just changes a franchise, to the point that like we all think Nick Caserio is fantastic after not having a clue of what direction he was moving that franchise into, to the point that we think D'Amico Ryans looks like the next special coach, and maybe he is, but man, CJ Stroud is special. It looks that way right now. We'll see. It looks like he's that special guy, but man, I think you got to bet against them. There's no way a rookie quarterback can walk into Baltimore and do that. I know he played very well week 1. I know the Texans surprisingly competed week 1, not committed. They were committed to winning that game, but they were competing week 1 when we all thought maybe Houston sucked and Baltimore was very good, and they competed week 1, and it turns out Houston is very good and Baltimore is excellent. Both of those things are true. But look, I think Baltimore has to win this game, Jesse. I don't think there's any way a rookie quarterback can have an even better rookie season than this. At this point, we're already having conversation of is this better than Herbert? Is this better than Dak? It probably is. This guy looks really special at the moment. I'm taking Baltimore. I'm have a chance of being wrong, especially because I know what my guy Krug up on my top right is going to pick, but I'll take Baltimore.
Okay. All right. Krug, are we in for an upset according to you? Are you picking the Texans in this game?
I'm picking the Texans.
Oh, wow. I love it. I would love to say that you're wrong, but again, I'm awful at this. You were right with the Green Bay game, so I'm not gonna go against it too much. A bit of a surprise. 9.5-point favorite, and you're going with the Texans. Okay. Give me the reasoning.
The Texans. Okay. A couple reasons. One, I love the tone that that D'Amico is setting with his team. He's not making these games a big deal. He's treating them like they're just another game, just another game, just another game. And there's a lot of football reasons to really like the Texans right now. I just think when you take a really close look at the personnel, Stroud's playing well. They got a terrific left tackle, a blue chip left tackle in Laramie Tunsil.
Wait. Can I pause you for a second? Because I do remember a show that the three of us were a part of that you weren't the biggest CJ Stroud fan. Now, I didn't question you when you picked the Texans on Tuesday when you and I did a show together, but now I remember it. Are you a big CJ Stroud fan now to go along with picking the Texans? Because you've picked the Texans already. That's your take. That's a good take.
No, I mean, I've my opinion evolves all the time. And my opinion on this player has evolved. I like the groove that he's in. I mean, it's the same reason I like CJ Stroud is the same reason I'm a little fearful of Jordan Love. But I really believe in the offense they're running. I like the weapons. They have two really good tight ends. They got Dalton Schultz and then Brevin Jordan. I loved him at Miami. I mean, he's a burner.
You did.
And to me, so they can go two tight ends, and then Nico Collins is just looking monster. I mean, he just looks absolutely fantastic right now. So I like what I think Devin Singletary to me looks better in Houston than he did in Buffalo. And so I like their offense, but that's not why I'm picking them. I'm picking them because of Jonathan Greenard, Will Anderson, and Derek Barnett. They're real off the edge. And I think those guys are going to get after Lamar. And then Christian Harris is super special. Oh my God, he was fantastic.
Looks
and I've
like
seen
Fred
him
Warner,
now,
doesn't he?
I mean, he's an absolute beast. And then they've got real talent in the secondary. I mean, Derek Stingley's a blue chipper. He was a very high number 1 pick. Jalen Petry's a second-round pick out of Baylor, I believe. He's a really talented kid. They got a solid corner in Nelson, and they got a solid nickelback in Desmond King, who looked great. And I just think that their defensive ends can rush, and I like the Texans' ability on the back end to cover. And I like the Texans. I like the Texans because I think if the Texans jump out early, Lamar is gonna have the same thoughts that he's had, and he's 1-3 in the playoffs, and the reason is because his teams never lead. He's always playing from behind. So the Ravens are a bully team. They love to run it, and then to me though, I'm a little nervous about the Texans settling in because it's a tough place to play. But if the Texans can just settle into that game without being down, more than down 2 touchdowns in the first 5 minutes or something like that, I love them because I love their ability to win from ahead. And I still think they got a great chance, even if they fall behind by 10 points or less. 14, they fall into a 17-3 hole, 5 minutes left in the first quarter. That's going to be tough. But if this game gets off to any kind of a Texan start, I don't believe Baltimore is going to run them over from behind.
Hey, how do you feel about Derek Stingley, though? One name
Derek
you didn't
Stingley.
mention. There we go.
He's a blue chipper. No, I did mention him. I said he's a blue chipper.
You did?
Yeah,
okay,
Derek Stingley went. Where'd he go in the draft?
Number
he was
3 overall. Number 3
yeah,
overall.
so he's a top 5 guy. He's got great size, and Petry's a really good safety. And then the kid DeAndre Houston Carson is a former Raven, and Steven Nelson is a veteran, but he's healthy and he's playing well. Steelers cut Desmond King, but Desmond King looked great in the last round. And their defensive ends, I think, rule the day here. Barnett looked phenomenal. Will Anderson and Greenard, these guys are big time. So I like Houston. I like Houston to get the win here. I don't like the Ravens' weapons, and I think the Ravens are more fragile than people think. They have to play from ahead and run the ball, and I don't like their weapons. I don't love. They're leaning on one rookie receiver, and their running backs are Justice Hill and Gus Edwards. No way. Give me Houston.
Well, they did sign may not blow your skirt back a little, whatever they say, blow your hair back, but they did sign Dalvin Cook, and I think Dalvin. Listen, Dalvin's clearly not in his prime anymore, but he's still explosive. He showed some explosiveness. He just wasn't getting any run with the Jets. I think that was a smart signing by them. They weren't going to play Gordon ever, and he's a fumble machine. So I think that was a good signing by them. But Mark Andrews is supposed to be back. You got him and Likely, so you can run a 2 tight end system. I think they got a pretty good offensive line. The reason I'm going to pick the Ravens, frankly, I just think they're the better team. But the Texans, much like, and this is somehow I overlooked this last week when it came to the Cleveland Browns and that defense not playing well on the road. Well, the Texans offense, even with CJ Stroud, the last 4 games at home, they've averaged 28 points a game. On the road, just 18 points a game. So they are a very different offense on the road and have been, and they weren't playing very good teams in some of those games. They played like the Carolina Panthers and what have you. So I just don't think against this defense on the road in this environment that offense will be able to get it going consistently. I love CJ Stroud. He was my clear number 1 quarterback coming out of this draft. He is showing up in a big way, showing up more than I even expected as a rookie. Certainly looks like a superstar for sure.
Wait. That's not true.
Yeah.
That's not true.
What?
You're not giving yourself enough credit, so I'll give you credit because I was the one who convinced you to watch these college quarterbacks in the first place because I kept texting you about it.
Mm.
And you did say one CJ Stroud in a Shanahan offense would be a
Yeah.
superstar from day one. And what offense
That's
is
true.
he in? With who's his
Shanahan
coordinator?
offense.
Give yourself a pat on the back.
You're
Jesse
right.
Baker. Come
You're
on.
right about that. You're right about that.
One thing about Andrews, what I'm reading from Harbaugh, unless you got something more updated, Jamison Hensley is reporting that it's up in the air.
Yeah, he's questionable, but he was a full participant the last 2 days. So we'll see. I mean, he may play, he may
I'll
not.
say this on the Niner front, Jair Alexander did not practice Wednesday or Thursday. So that's interesting on the Niner front.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys that would probably just play. You know, they're going to rest him and then probably play him. If he is going to play, we will see about that. But either way, I know week 1 was a long time ago, right? And CJ Stroud, his first game, D'Amico Ryan's first game as a coach, he did play well, and he threw the ball a ton. They lost against the Ravens, and that same Ravens team, oddly enough, was without Mark Andrews and without Marlon Humphrey, who they might be without this weekend. So it is an interesting lineup. He's already out. Yes, he's already out. Yep, it's a big deal. Big deal. So we'll see, man. I think it's probably closer. You give me the Texans in the 9.5, I'll take that all day long. But I just don't know that they can win. We'll see. It's going to come down to Lamar. Can Lamar be the superstar quarterback that he has been this season and show up the way he did in games like the 49ers and Dolphins? Or does he look like he did the last time in the playoffs, which was, it's been a few years, what have you. It's interesting to see. It is interesting to see, but I am taking the Ravens. All right, let's move on to the other AFC game. And I will say this, obviously, as a 49er fan, the game I'm looking most forward to is the 49er game. But as a football fan, if I didn't have a dog in the fight, I would absolutely be looking most forward to this game here, which is the Buffalo Bills hosting, yes, I said that right, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs on the road for the first time in the playoffs in the Patrick Mahomes era. Absolutely crazy. This is a game between two elite of the elite quarterbacks. Weather shouldn't matter in a game like this when you got two quarterbacks that can sling it the way that they can. But you've got vastly different teams than what you've had in the past. You got Kansas City, who's relying on defense. You got Buffalo, who's, they got a decent defense, but they do rely on the offense. But oddly enough, not so much Josh Allen as of late, which is interesting. Larry, we'll start with you this time. How do you have this game playing out?
Well, this one, it's like, I don't know, because here's the thing with Kansas City. They're not a good offensive team. I can't believe I'm saying that when you're talking about Mahomes and Reed, but they settled for 4 field goals against Miami, 4 Harrison Butker field goals. I don't know that they can score enough points in this game, but Buffalo did lose Bernard, the linebacker. They're already missing Tre'Davious White. They're already missing Matt Milano. And now you got Teron Johnson's got a concussion and Christian Benford's got a knee. And, their defense is depleted. I think I would probably, if I was playing this, I'd probably play the under. I'm going to go with Kansas City. Rashee Rice, and Travis Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco are the weapons that they trust. And those, as long as they go to those guys, I'll take Kansas City. Kansas City's interior offensive line is tremendous. Their defense is really good on all 3 levels still. I know everybody thinks, this is Josh Allen's time now because Mahomes is beating him, but Mahomes has always done it at Arrowhead, and now this is in Buffalo. But it's I don't know. I there's something about Buffalo. There's a lot of inconsistency with Buffalo. So, and against Josh Allen, against a really good defense, I'll take Kansas City. I'll take Kansas City and Mahomes. I don't feel great about it. I think if I was playing the game, as I said, I'd go under because I think Kansas City's going to struggle to score points. I think Buffalo's going to have some good moments offensively and some bad moments offensively. I think Allen's probably going to turn it over once or twice. I like the under, but I'll take the Chiefs. And it's Chiefs getting 3, isn't it?
2.5, which is essentially a pick 'em. When you're a road team and you're laying 2.5, it's
Two and
basically
a
a
half
pick
at
'em.
home is basically your favorite because I feel like 3 at home is like the conventional pick 'em, right?
It used to be 3.5. Over the last couple of years, it's anywhere from 1.5 to 3.5,
Okay,
depending on the home field advantage. I guess Buffalo, if anybody would have, you would think with the
right.
crowd and all that. So, maybe it's a slight edge to Kansas City. I don't know.
I think the one
Fair.
thing about Kansas City is they remind me of a team that lacks focus because they've been in so many big games and Super Bowls that they don't get up every week and they don't get up they don't get for every game, but they will be up for this game. They
Oh,
will
yeah.
take this opponent seriously. It's not going to snow. It's going to be cold, but won't be as cold as it was last week. So for Kansas City. So Kansas City somehow, some way, Kansas City gets it done.
Yeah, I don't think weather's going to matter in a game with quarterbacks like this. It's a moot point. But Vish, what are your thoughts? Who are you taking in this one?
Yeah, as much as I would love to take Buffalo in this game, I'm going to take Kansas City as well. Similar points to Larry. I'm so impressed with what Buffalo has done this year. Firing Ken Dorsey, all the bullshit that came out about Sean McDermott, the fact that they were able to turn it around, the fact that Josh Allen, they were able to find a run game. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs haven't even been like carrying them in that duo in that sense, if that makes sense, in their win streak, and they've still found ways to win football games. The Matt Milano injury, all of that, and they've still continued to play pretty decent on defense. I love what Buffalo is doing. I want Buffalo to win this game. Other than rooting for the Niners, like I'm seriously rooting for Buffalo to win this game. There's just something about Kansas City. When you look at the corner duo, to me, it's the best duo in football with L'Jarius Sneed, who's an all-pro in my mind, as good as anybody in my mind, and Trent McDuffie, who's an absolute star at nickel in my mind. They got Nick Bolton back healthy. Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, you want to name any linebacker duo in the NFL, they're as good as anybody that exists. Chris Jones is playing really well. I just feel like Kansas City has a little bit more personnel-wise on defense to be able to stop the Buffalo offense. And it sucks because I'm so impressed with what Buffalo is doing. And I think that losing to Kansas City specifically would be such an ugly end to their football season, especially after it's been so impressive after they were 6-6. But I think Larry nailed all the talking points to it. It's just there's something about Kansas City. Somehow, some way, they're going to get it done. Larry nailed it. I'm with him. I'm going to be rooting like hell for Kansas City for Buffalo, excuse me, to win this game. But I will pick Kansas City to win this game. What do you think, Jesse? Josh Allen is your guy right here.
He
I
is
see
my
the chat
guy.
already saying Jesse is
Yeah,
biased to Josh Allen.
Josh Allen is my guy. There's no denying that. But let's make it a clean sweep. I also agree Kansas City wins this game. I think Buffalo is just way too injured. And I think that as great as I think Josh Allen is, there is one guy who is clearly better than him in this league. And that guy, this is the one time where I can confidently say Josh Allen will not be the best quarterback in this game because Patrick Mahomes will be.
Even this year?
He's fantastic. I think that his numbers, he can put up probably higher numbers, but if there is any chance that Patrick Mahomes has the ball last and that defense can keep it close, I just don't trust anybody to win other than him. I mean, he's absolutely incredible. And oddly enough, here comes the playoffs. He needed one receiver to break out. And that receiver is rookie Rashee Rice, who is now broken out and become that clear number one guy for him.
Second best receiver after one Danny Gray.
Right, you're right. So true. So true. So he's got the receiver, and that defense is fantastic on all three levels. I believe the last time they played, Bolton did not play, and that is a big miss, huge miss. So he will be playing this week. I think Kansas City goes in, beats the Buffalo Bills, and advance to the AFC Championship to face the Baltimore Ravens. Okay.
They would have done it. I think Buffalo would have done it, guys, if Gabe Davis were healthy, if they were healthier on defense. But I mean, if you look at them, they're seriously a mash unit on defense.
They are, yeah.
Is Von Miller going to play?
Yeah.
Did he play last week? I didn't see him. I
Yeah,
didn't
he's
see
been
him.
he's been a healthy scratch. He's been a healthy scratch in like 3 games.
The guy for Buffalo in that front four, especially this year, that stepped up is Ed Oliver. Has gone from good player that we all think was talented to just straight up superstar. And I do think, like Larry, you mentioned
I
Kansas
like
City's
Rousseau.
interior offensive line is terrific. But like, I still think this is a game Ed Oliver can have an impact. It's just what Jesse mentioned about Kansas City just finding a way to get it done with Mahomes also having the ball last and all of that. I think there's something sustainable. I don't know. I know Buffalo has ran the ball really well and played good defense, but there's something more sustainable to me about Pacheco and Kansas City's defense than there has been to what Buffalo has been doing. I'm still not fully into this idea that Buffalo identifies as a running team because I think
No.
that's what they need to be to beat Kansas City at this point, given where Stephon Diggs is, given what I think of Gabe Davis and all of that. And I think Kansas City, I don't know. There was something about the Miami game. I know Miami was basically starting Larry Krueger, Jesse Naylor, and Vish Kumar in their front seven. But no disrespect to Justin Houston, Bruce.
But it wasn't their defense that let them down.
Right,
It was their offense. That's
exactly,
crazy. Yeah.
exactly what I was gonna say. No disrespect to Justin Houston, Melvin Ingram, and Bruce Irvin, but but basically the point is, right, like their defense ended up stepping up the best it could in that situation, and Kansas City's defense just looked a step above. Pacheco looks a step above. And Rashee Rice, he's no Danny Gray, let me tell you, but he looks like something when he's playing with Patrick Mahomes. I just feel like Kansas City has the right formula to win this game. And it sucks because I'm going to be rooting like hell for Buffalo. I don't know about you guys. I don't know if, Jesse, you have necessarily a rooting interest in this game. Larry, you don't seem to have a rooting interest in this game, but like there's still a hatred to me for Kansas City. That 2019 Super Bowl is a lingering bad taste in my breath, my stomach, all aspects of it. And so I'm going to be rooting like hell for Buffalo. But man, it's frustrating. But to me, this football game on paper plays out to Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm a fan of players. Obviously, you have your team that you root for, and that's the 49ers, but I definitely am a fan of players, so I'll be rooting for Josh Allen. And I've also kind of got a soft spot in my heart for fan bases that have really been through the gauntlet. I was very happy that the Lions were able to win this last week for that fan base. I just felt like they needed it. It had been so long. And Buffalo, we know the agony that they've been through. So I would tend to probably root for them as well. But honestly, I don't really care that much. But if I had to pick, I would pick Buffalo to root for. Let me get to these super chats before we get over to the NFC. I don't want to make these guys wait too long. Samir says, "Hey y'all, Vish's late penalty should be looking up much needed stats throughout the show." Nice.
Look. I will say,
Yeah.
I called Jesse before the show because I came home a little bit late from work. I called Jesse. I said, I'm coming home. I forgot my wallet. Guess where my wallet was? Turns out when I was pulling my keys out of my pocket to open my door, I dropped my wallet right in front of my door. I opened my door. I'm like, oh crap. I can't do this to Jesse, but I got to find my wallet. Let me go outside. My wallet's right on the floor, right outside of my door. It was a bad situation, guys. It's not my greatest. Maybe Samir is right about me looking up stats, but you know what? That's not what Jesse made me do. So forgive me for being late. And here I am with Larry Krueger and Jesse Naylor.
Is your door lead to the outside? Was it sitting on the sidewalk or was it just in the hallway of some building?
Dude, I'm not going to lie to you. If it was sitting on the sidewalk, there was no chance I was finding it until
gone.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's so cold outside. I'm not walking outside now that I came back inside. Luckily, I live in an apartment building, and I was right outside my door in terms of the floor.
There you go.
How about that? There we go.
Four Life Niner says if Green Bay and the Houston Texans go to the Super Bowl, I'm done.
I can't lie.
Be great.
That's exactly what I'm thinking in my head as well. I don't know about you guys, but if
be
we had a Jordan Love,
The
CJ
worst.
Stroud Super Bowl after what I thought, I thought Green Bay would make the playoffs before the year, but I thought Houston would be the worst team in the AFC. I was that idiot. Like, are you kidding me?
Oh my gosh.
I picked Cleveland to beat Houston last week.
Dude, you and everybody. I was at a bar watching that game, and like the first touchdown from Cleveland, everybody was like, yeah, I'm a Cleveland fan, whatever. And I was like, oh, I didn't know Cleveland had this many fans. Next thing you know, you get to the second half of that game. Turns out Houston has all the fans, huh? Funny how that works in Chicago, huh, Larry? Huh?
Yeah,
huh?
seriously. People love a
CB
winner.
Niners. CB Niner says, "Oh my gosh, happy 1 year. This weekend is going to be epic." Yeah, thank you so much for being a member for 12 months. That's a long time, brother. I really appreciate you. Matthew says, "Am I the only one who thinks this should be boring? Ho hum day at the office for the Niners. They can't stop this. Oh, do 25 runs, 25 passes, win by 10." Well, Matthew, you're going to hear our opinion in just a minute. But before we get to that opinion, let's get over to the NFC. Let's get over to the Detroit Lions hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 6.5-point favorites are the Detroit Lions. This is the matchup we all had in the divisional round before the season started. I know it. So, Vish, we're going to go to you first this time. Who do you have winning this one, Detroit or Tampa?
So I've gone back and forth on this game. I don't love the Rams. Let me rephrase that. But I love Matthew Stafford as much as anybody. I ended up picking the Rams in that game in our previous show last week, not because of Matthew Stafford, because I love that run game with Gibbs and Monty. In a lot of ways, I think that they're going to replicate that. But here's a shocker. I'm going to pick Tampa Bay to win this game, and there's two reasons why I like Tampa Bay in this game. One is Todd Bowles. I love Todd Bowles. I love what they do with their front seven. I love Vita Vea specifically. I think they're going to have more success rushing the passer than the Rams did against the Lions, okay? I think they have a better front seven when you combine Vita Vea, Shaq Barrett, and them. I like their secondary a little better. Carlton Davis is a good player, probably a little overrated by me throughout his career, but I think he's a good player. Jamel Dean is a stud in my mind. Antoine Winfield, in my opinion, is the single best safety in all of football. I think that they're going to have more success on defense than the Rams did. And offensively, I'm not the biggest Baker Mayfield fan, though I've been a fan of Baker Mayfield at different points in his career. But I think this matchup is very favorable to the Bucs. And it's because I don't expect the Rams to get immediate pressure on the Bucs. I think the Bucs offensive line is about as good as the Rams offensive line, and Stafford had all day to throw. And I think this is a game for Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Trey Palmer, all those guys. It lines up perfectly against Cam Sutton, these guys. The Lions secondary has supremely struggled. I know that Larry is the biggest fan of CJ Gardner-Johnson. There is, other than CJ Gardner-Johnson's direct family. I do think CJ Gardner-Johnson has had a good season, but I think this Lions secondary on the whole is struggled. And I look at the Bucs and I say they can take advantage of that. I love Todd Bowles. I think he can be a little more creative with the personnel he has than Raheem Morris was capable of. Look, I think it was a very close game between the Rams and Lions, probably closer than I expected because I thought the Lions run game would dominate that game in more capacity than I thought. But I think the Bucs, even with Baker Mayfield and all of that, are capable of going into Detroit and winning that game. We got to pick an upset at some point. I know Larry already picked Houston, so his upset's out of the way. I didn't pick Houston. I picked Baltimore. I guess Kansas City is kind of an upset, but when we put the home odds together, they're kind of a pick 'em. So I'll go with Tampa Bay here. I'll take Tampa Bay. I like their defense in this spot. And then specifically, I don't think Detroit's going to be able to cover those receivers, specifically Godwin and Evans. I think they'll get pressure on Goff. I'll go out of the box. I'll pick Tampa Bay to win this game.
All right, Larry, I got to hear your opinion on this one. Who are you going with?
Tampa's not going to go and win in the cold weather of Detroit.
There we go.
Okay.
Oh, he's like the reporter asking Todd Bowles a question about the weather.
Tampa cannot go to Detroit in January and take on those conditions. They're going to be outside for at least 90 feet. I think those 90 feet are going to be painful. They're going to run that 90 feet. Somebody's going to slip. They're going to go from the bus, and on the way into the stadium, somebody's going to get frostbite. And I just think that they can't handle the weather.
Nice.
Man,
nice.
That had to be.
By the way, Larry, this is a great point because I've been thinking my Pistons are going to win a game starting from November simply because, hey, the weather is so effective. Who cares if they're at Caesar Palace Arena? Who cares? The weather, that 50 feet. Come on, my Pistons.
I just think Todd Bowles is far and away the nicest man of all time. I mean, could you imagine if you'd asked that question to Belichick?
Oh gosh!
We're playing indoors.
He would have been like,
"We're on to
PR guy.
On to Tampa Bay. We're on to Detroit."
Belichick could be like, "How did you get a credential? Excuse me, somebody somebody yank her credential. No, I like Detroit. I mean, come on. Detroit is hitting like a truck. They're hitting hard. They're out there for blood. Kirby Joseph ended Tyler Higbee's career maybe in that game.
Did you think it was a dirty hit, by the way? I just want to know.
I
just
do.
as a
I
question.
do. I don't
Okay,
like that. I
you
didn't
do.
like that hit at all. Didn't like it at all. And somebody said, I said, well, it was a helmet on the knee. Someone said, no, it was a shoulder. Either way, I mean, the guy, it was a direct shot to the guy's knees. And the guy's a torn ACL. I think Detroit is they're out for blood. I mean, they're just really, really hard hitting. Their D line's not as good as it's going to be in a year, but Aleem McNeil needs to be talked about. He's a very good player. I mean, nobody knows anything about him, but
he came back a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, he's from NC State. He's about 320 pounds or whatever, and he's good. And then you've got Hutchinson, who's just monster. Anzalone and Campbell and Barnes on that second level are really solid. And they'd be better if they had Mosley. But you know what? Melifonwu is played pretty well. Kirby Joseph is a killer. And Brian Branch is going to play, and they've got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And then offensively, the Detroit Lions have some of the NFL's best talents. Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the best receivers in football. Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell and Frank Ragnow are three of the best offensive linemen in the game.
Gibbs, Monty, best running back duo in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, Gibbs and Monty are terrific. Laporta, I thought would look like
Jared Goff.
I thought Laporta would look really bad. I thought Laporta would look really limited. I thought Laporta looked pretty good. And you know what the thing about Jared Goff? We can criticize Jared Goff all we want, but the one thing
we will criticize Jared Goff.
The one thing that's really clear about Jared Goff right now is that he has put in the practice reps, and there's a couple of unstoppable things that Jared Goff can do with Amon-Ra. So it's just they're on the same page. Goff had a tremendous year. He's in what I would call the super prime of a quarterback's career. He's not a rookie, but he's 29 now. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's playing great ball. So give me Detroit. I respect the hell out of Tampa. I love Antoine Winfield. Love Kalijah Cansey. Really believe in their receivers. Love Yaya Diaby. I really wanted the Niners to grab him. I think Tampa's got like 5 guys on their defense that have like at least 5 sacks or something like that. So they get it done with a bunch of different guys up front. But I like Detroit to win and cover.
Well, what do you think about Amon-Ra St. Brown only having 10 touchdowns this year?
I really think that Amon-Ra is one of the most unstoppable receivers right now. As far as
agree.
He can run he's not the biggest guy, he's not the fastest guy, he's not anything except for he's just damn good. He's just damn good, and he's locked in with his receiver, with his quarterback, and they've got other weapons. I mean, they got a speed element there, they got a tight end, they got 2 great backs, one who can catch it out of the backfield, and they have a great offensive line. And I'll take their great offensive line to win against Tampa's D line, which I really do like. But I'm taking Detroit, and especially at home, the place is rocking. They've got tremendous momentum. They're going to win this game. They're going to lose when they get on the road, but they're not going to lose in Detroit.
Hey, real quick, Jesse, before we go to you, the one thing I will say about Amon-Ra, there's something special about a receiver that's really, really good after the catch. And he's not Deebo Samuel after the catch. That might be the most special receiver after the catch outside of Jerry Rice we've ever seen. But he's like really special after the catch, learning how to use his body to win with leverage and explosiveness. And I thought that last route versus the Rams, when he clinched that football game and he kind of just put his body on the guy and boxed him out, like just ran the route with such physicality and urgency, just showed the veteran savvy and the urgency of Amon-Ra. I think, all jokes aside about the touchdowns and all of that, Krug nailed it. Amon-Ra looks pretty much unguardable right now. And that's going to be a tough matchup. But let me tell you, Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis, better than any corner that the Rams have to offer. I will say that. But Krug nailed it. Amon-Ra looks uncoverable right now. Go ahead, Jesse.
119 receptions.
Yeah.
I mean, that's only Lamb had more, and Tyreek had the same number. But I mean, when you're making 119 receptions, that's crazy.
Yeah, he's absolutely incredible. And I remember a couple weeks ago, Larry, when we had the conversation of was Brandon Ayuk snubbed from the Pro Bowl, and I said, well, I mean, maybe, but then you have to say that Amon-Ra St. Brown was snubbed. And if you had put Amon-Ra in, would it have been a snub and vice versa? So he's really, really, really good. He's
Golden State
absolutely
on
phenomenal.
steroids, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He absolutely
too.
is. He's got 10 touchdowns. Here's my thing. I'm gonna rescind an earlier comment. You said, do you root for teams or do you have a rooting interest other than the 49ers? And I said, absolutely not. I do in this game, actually. It's gotta be Detroit. One reason, the only reason is I live in Tampa. I live 20 minutes from that stadium. I can see them whenever the hell I want. Oddly enough, when I went back to Oregon for Thanksgiving and went and watched the 49er game, of course they were playing Tampa. And if they play Tampa in the NFC Championship when I'm in the building, I will be thoroughly disappointed to have to watch them play Tampa, a team that I can watch anytime and could care less about. Give me the Detroit Lions. I want to see something fresh, man.
I feel you on that one.
The 49ers are going to beat any of these teams, but at least give me something different. And the Detroit Lions are fresh. They're different. I don't want to see Tampa again this year for the second time in Santa Clara. I'm spending my hard-earned money to fly across the country and be there for the NFC Championship. Please don't let it be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That being said, I really do think the Detroit Lions are going to win. I think the tandem in the run game is going to be tough. Goff certainly can be Goffle when he's being pressured. However, getting to him with that offensive line is going to be tough. They do get rid of the ball quickly. I think Ben Johnson is one of the better offensive minds. And I look at a defense in Detroit who can't seem to stop the pass game. I understand that. However, much like Green Bay against Dallas last week, where all of a sudden their defense played lights out and you're wondering, how is this possible? Well, it's possible because you have a team in front of you that is one-dimensional in their attack. That is exactly what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are. They are not a very good running team at all. So that means they're going to have to beat you through the air. Just knowing that fact for Detroit will make things a little bit easier on their defense. I think it's enough for them to win. However, I do not think that they are going to cover.
Okay. How much is Detroit favored by the way?
6.5. 6.5.
Oh,
yeah. That's a big spread, I think.
Krug, is that already on the underdog? Like, in terms of, like, I know that you can't just share the Krug Show's bets simply because you're sponsored by Underdog. Like, you're kind of a big deal. But is Detroit, like, not covering, like, taking Tampa Bay plus the spread one of the Krug Show's big picks this week?
No, I like Detroit. Here's the thing about that. I hear what Jesse's saying. He's saying it's going to, he thinks these teams are closer. But, the reason you could make an argument based on personnel, guys, that Tampa offense top to bottom, defense top to bottom has better personnel than Detroit. Really, if you went position by position, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you could make an argument on Tampa on both sides.
Who are you
of the ball.
taking, Baker or Goff? Let me hear
Goff.
that real quick.
I'm taking Goff.
Slightly Goff.
But
I'll take Baker.
But here's the thing:
Baker's arm.
Detroit's best players are some of the best players at their entire position. And I just think that they're not always, but in this game, there's going to be an emotional aspect to this thing. So I'm not worried about the points here. I think Detroit's going to get up, and that place it's going to be an emotional crescendo. And I think they win that game big. I think they win by 10 plus points.
You know what's crazy? Like, I can 100% buy what you're saying, especially because I think Detroit's run game, and this is someone who was completely wrong about Detroit throughout the entirety of this season. Like, I thought Detroit was on fraud watch from week one, and then they proved me wrong basically at every point this season. And perhaps this is another moment that they proved me wrong, even though I picked them versus the Rams. So I feel like I've already given my due to Detroit. Like, I've acknowledged that they're a very good team. But if you go position by position, right, we're going Baker versus Goff. To me, like, okay, I take Baker, you guys take Goff. To me, it's not like, okay, Baker and Goff are like in such different tiers that you and I can't have an argument about Baker versus Goff. I think conventional wisdom would tell you that Goff is probably the quarterback that you take in that situation. I'm definitely out there with taking Baker in that situation, but they're in the same conversation to me. Running backs, 100%, you're not taking anybody over Monty and Gibbs, but you get to receivers, and I like the combination of Godwin with Evans and Trey Palmer and all of them over Amon-Ra and Jamison Williams, who I thought was the best receiver in his draft, but still hasn't developed, and Josh Reynolds, who looks really good versus the Rams, but he's not that guy versus everybody else. I'm taking Tampa Bay's defensive line. Tampa Bay's offensive line is definitely worse than Detroit, but it's not that much worse. I'm taking Tampa Bay's linebackers for sure. Jack Campbell and them are young, but Levante David's still a superstar. Devin White's all right. He's all right, as Deion Sanders would say. He's all right. And I'm taking Tampa Bay's secondary for sure, too. Jamel Dean's a star to me. Jamel Dean's right. Like, he's like the other version of Charvarius Ward in the NFC, where like everybody thinks he's a good corner when they see him play, but nobody acknowledges him as one of the better corners in the sport. To me, Jamel Dean is one of that. I'll take their secondary with Antoine Winfield, Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis. I think this is a closer matchup on paper. There's a very good chance with how electric that stadium was versus the Rams and how salty Stafford was that they could blow out the Bucs. This is the same Bucs team that blew a game versus the Saints, almost lost to the Carolina Panthers and win plus get in. But I think this matchup is somewhat favorable for them versus Detroit, maybe more favorable for them than the Rams because their defense personnel-wise can get pressure on the quarterback. They do have question marks stopping the run game. I'm relying on a Todd Bowles game plan here. But offensively, like we're talking about bad corners on the Lions. The combination of Cam Sutton and who are they starting? I think they're starting what's his name?
They do like a rotation. Honestly, it's like every week they're starting somebody new depending on matchups. Yeah.
What's that guy's name? They start that one guy. What's his name?
But although their nickel corner is not bad. I think
Brian
so,
Branch
yeah.
is a superstar.
Yeah,
Brian Branch looks like he's going to be a superstar.
And he's healthy.
He looks
their corners right now, are Cam Sutton and Kendall Vildor.
Right, Vildor, right? Vildor is the other corner. And yeah. I just look at Mike Evans and I look at Chris Godwin and I say, man, Baker Mayfield throws the ball on the outside very well if they can protect the quarterback. They've protected the quarterback this year better than they have the last couple of years with Brady, moving Tristan Wirfs, who's Tristan Wilkes, out to left tackle, and improving their offensive line has been a big advantage for them. I don't necessarily feel confident on picking the Bucs in this game, though I just picked them. But guys, I feel like this is a matchup where when you say the Lions are going to cover Krug, I don't feel confident about that. When you say it's going to be a close game, Jesse, I do feel confident about that.
What about an emotional letdown? You talked about emotion, Larry, and obviously that place is going to be rocking, but this is a team that hadn't won a playoff game in forever. They finally got a home playoff game. Couldn't have had a better opponent as far as emotion rising and Matthew Stafford coming back. Jared Goff playing against his former team and coach. Any concerns there that there's an emotional letdown for them this week?
No.
Okay.
I think that Detroit has been down for so long, and it's just that they have real talent now. They got real momentum. They're hard hitting and they're tough. It's a tough, we always talk about, the more physical team's going to win this game. You'll hear like Fred Warner gather the guys at the 50 and he'll be like, guys, the most physical team's going to win this game. I kind of believe in that in the postseason, and the Lions are going to be the more physical team. I really think on both sides of the ball. I think their O-line's going to dictate, and I think they'll get up. I just think they're better. What did we see last week with Tampa? Did we see Tampa look awesome, or did we see Philly?
We did.
Yeah, but
I will say this.
There's two teams on the field. Philly was a disaster.
They were a disaster, 100%.
It was like 7-on-7.
They gave up from week one. But as somebody who's like really high on Green Bay, and I feel like a part of Green Bay's perception, and it's not you, Crew, because you've been high on Green Bay, whether they obliterated Dallas or not, like that, you've been on that take. But like I've seen a lot of people change their perception on Green Bay simply because they obliterated Dallas. Like Tampa was like 3 drop passes away from embarrassing Philly in ways we've never seen them embarrassed in the last 2 years. And I know Philly didn't show up to play in that game, but Tampa was about to like it was about to be Jesse couldn't even walk outside in Tampa because everybody would be telling him Baker Mayfield is Joe Montana.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a fun game. That's going to be a fun game as well. All right, let's get to the game that matters most to us, though. And that is the San Francisco 49ers, number 1 seed, starting their playoff journey off against the first number 7 seed ever to advance in the few short years that they have been around. The Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love,
are they
coming
really
to town. First, but it's only been, 3 years?
The 7th seed in 2021?
6 seed. 6 seed.
6, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 6 seed.
Good stuff.
Yep.
My bad.
So 7th seed, first time ever, rolling into Santa Clara to face your San Francisco 49ers. Larry, we're going to start with you. We have to start with you because you talked up Green Bay. You picked them against Dallas. Great pick by you. You said that you were worried about that matchup. And I think you probably started out that way, but as you've been around the team, the confidence is growing. I can feel it. Who wins this game? And let's go out on a limb here, not just who wins. Give me the actual score of this one.
Ooh,
whoa,
that's gonna be tough. Let's do it in parts. I'll give you the score later.
All right.
Let me go with why I'm turning this thing around. Okay. Green Bay scares the hell out of me. I'm a personnel guy, so I like to look at the teams that are coming on personnel wise. And I've fallen in love with the job that Gutekunst has done post Aaron Rodgers. He traded up for Love and he drafted all these guys. Kraft in the 3rd, Musgrave in the 2nd, and all these guys. I mean, Dontavian Wicks has been really hot in the 5th round. Jaden Reed in the 2nd round. Dobbs in the 4th round. You know, I mean, he's really been good. Carl Brooks on the D line. You know, they really look good. And they're coming. And there's absolutely no doubt they're coming. But how much, what was hard to gauge is how much of what we saw last week was Green Bay and how much of it was Dallas. How much of it was Green Bay's awesome and how much of it was Dallas whizzed down their leg. And the one stat that I think is really interesting, and I was looking for some trends today when I was looking through all the numbers. I got to the Niner facility about a couple hours early, and I said, I'm going to do a deep dive. I'm going to see if I can find every bit of information. And I found all kinds of information. The one thing that really stood out, how about this one? Teams that win in the wild card round as 6-point dogs or more, and then go into that division round as 6-point dogs again or more, the following week are 3-13 straight up over the last 20 years. 3-13 straight up. That's Green Bay. The exceptions were the Ravens in 2013 and the New York Giants did it twice, I think in 2008. 3-13 though, straight up over the last 20 years. So that's one.
So basically, you got to be a Super Bowl winner in order to make that happen because those teams won the Super Bowl, yeah?
I mean, you know, or have an extended run and at least get there, right? Green Bay's special teams are terrible. They rank 31st by DVOA.
You don't love Rich Bisaccia?
No, and I really don't love their punting game.
And kicking game is terrible.
Their kicker outside of 40. There you go. Also, teams on short rest in the playoffs facing a team that's not on short rest, 5-12 straight up over the last 20 years. The Packers are on short rest. I love Shanahan. He's 4-0 at home in the playoffs as a playoff favorite. You know, he gets it done at home. But when I get deeper into the matchup, turnovers are my biggest concern for the Niners. And then Green Bay only took it away 18 times this year. That they're 23rd in the NFL in takeaways. So that was more Dallas than them last week, in my opinion. Then I'm looking at Debo and Ayuk against Green Bay's corners. And Ayuk was an all-pro. Green Bay's
pretty good season, huh, Larry?
What's that?
Pretty good season, huh?
He had a good season. He had a hell of a season. Incredible second half, too.
There we go.
Wound up with 8 touchdowns, I think, or 7 touchdowns. Green Bay's
By the way,
had 2.5
after
at the
we
halfway
had
point.
that debate, like I was the one that was big on his yardage. His yardage actually went down after we had that debate. And it was almost like he heard you comment about his touchdowns. And he was like, okay, F the yardage. Larry Krueger will only be impressed with me if I score touchdowns. So let me just screw the yardage and score touchdowns. He was scoring touchdowns for you.
Brock got this guy the ball in the red zone in the second half of the year. But Green Bay's pass defense gave up 100.3 rating to wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
To put that in perspective, 28th in the NFL, Green Bay is against defending opposing wide receivers. Green Bay can't cover the tight end. George Kittle's an all-pro. Devondre Campbell can't run at all. Quay Walker is not a coverage guy. Quay Walker would be better suited putting on 12 to 15 pounds and playing at defensive end. He's not an inside backer, and he's only good going forward. Then you look at Green Bay as far as what they've allowed quarterback rating to tight ends, 23rd in the NFL against tight ends. So Kittle could have a monster day. Stopping Aaron Jones is going to be a major task for sure. Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw are healthy. Both of those guys had over 120 tackles this year, and I think they can do the job. The Niners are going to run the ball with CMC. Green Bay can't stop the run. They're 28th against the run. The Niners are 10-1 when CMC goes for 75 yards. He's going to go for 75 yards. There's no doubt in my mind. And then a couple other reasons. Jordan Love's had a tremendous game against Dallas for sure. But the 49ers secondary, I think, is a little underrated. One, Mooney's an all-pro corner. I think he can do a good job on Dobbs. The Niners had 22 picks, first in the NFL, 9.6 yards per completion. That's first in the NFL. So another thing I really like there. Niners also score 76 points on opening drives, best in the league. The Niners also score touchdowns in the red zone under Brock Purdy, 67.2% of the time. That's the best in the NFL, the best in the entire league. The Niners have 4 guys from scrimmage, CMC, Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle, who had at least 1,000 yards. They're 4-0 at home in the playoffs under Shanahan. They got 9 Pro Bowlers. Green Bay's got none. I think what we saw last week was Green Bay looking great and teasing us about the future, but Green Bay's been up and down this year. They're going to have to put some pressure on Love for sure, and I'm a little concerned about that. I think it might be a little bit of a shootout. So Jesse's talking about score now. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a high-scoring game. I'm going to say something like 35-24, something like that. And I like the Niners to win this game. Also, when I went in the room and I'm talking to guys this week, man, I mean, Brock's in a great spot. They went live last week in a practice, and to a man, guys are feeling good. Demo Lenore said that the stain and the terrible feeling of the way last year ended has fueled them all year, and said that's why we're not going to lose, because of that feeling. And the way he said it, and the conviction that he had when he looked at me when he said it, in addition to all those variables I just said there, I like the Niners. I like the Niners to win it. I think Green Bay's coming, though. And I think Green Bay is going to be a factor in the NFC in the next 5 years. And they fired a major shot announcing their arrival last week. But the Niners are the class, and it will show this weekend.
I love it. Very, very close to my score prediction. Vish, who do you have winning this game, and what is your score?
Yeah, I like the Niners pretty comfortably in this game. I'm thinking like 34-16, 34-13, 34-20, somewhere in that range. I think the Niners win by a couple of scores. It's nothing against Green Bay, but in a lot of ways, I'm getting some 2019 vibes from this. And it's not that Green Bay compares to Minnesota, who was the Niners' first opponent in the divisional round. It was just that they won a game that nobody expected them to win in a fashion nobody expected to win, right? Like if anybody remembers, that Minnesota team beat a New Orleans team that a lot of us felt was the Niners' biggest threat in that playoff run, right? Like I don't think anybody looked at that Green Bay team in 2019 as the Niners' biggest threat. We all felt it was New Orleans. New Orleans had been very good the preceding couple of years. They were robbed in 2018 against the Rams. We felt like they were the biggest threat. And Minnesota walked in there and beat them with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, which was to some like something that couldn't happen. In a lot of ways, even though the teams don't mirror each other and even though the games don't mirror each other, that's how I feel about Green Bay, right? Dallas is considered to be the Niners' biggest threat in these playoffs. Green Bay kind of walked in there and gave it to them in a way nobody expected, right? They blew them out, even people who liked Green Bay and liked the favorable matchup for Green Bay, like Krug, didn't expect the game to be 48-16 at one point, right? Like, Krug, did you think that it was going to be 48-16 at one point?
No. I mean, but Dallas, as I said, they gagged as well. I mean, Dallas was a big part of that last week.
Right. And so they gave into that game. And so when I look at this matchup on paper, to me, Green Bay, not Dallas, has one advantage over the 49ers, right? They have a better offensive line than the 49ers. The interior of their offensive line has been very good, especially the last 8 weeks of the season. Elton Jenkins is a superstar. Zach Tom at right tackle is pretty good. John Runyon is a decent right guard, even though his dad, is a much better player than he was. Josh Myers is a decent center, as Dallas or Green Bay tends to have decent centers and decent guards as they've always had. So I think that's really Green Bay's one win condition, one advantage. I know they're playing terrific football. I know Krug's right about their young personnel. It really looks daunting as we think about them developing, how much they improved this year. But this is a game to me that we're talking about one of the youngest teams in NFL history and a team that historically under their head coach has struggled in terms of traveling to the West Coast. Even this year, they lost in Las Vegas to Jimmy Garoppolo and them. Like, how they say Cade and them for Montraverde High School. This is Jimmy Garoppolo and them for the Las Vegas Raiders. They lost to them. I think this is a favorable matchup across the board for the Niners. The one thing Green Bay does specifically well through the second half of this year is run the ball behind that offensive line. Aaron Jones has been terrific. I thought that was really Dallas's biggest matchup problem on paper, even though I picked Dallas. Jesse, I don't see Aaron Jones running the ball well against the 49ers. He's averaged 3.8 yards a carry versus the 49ers in his career. He scored one rushing touchdown against the 49ers in his career. I don't think that changes in a lot of aspects. I like the Niners pretty comfortably in this game. It's not a shot against Green Bay because I think Krug's made a lot of good points about Green Bay, who they are, their future. It's not that I think Green Bay isn't that good. I just think this is a year that it's lined up for the 49ers. The 49ers are clearly the best team, and I think they win this game comfortably. How about you?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think styles make matchups, and we talked about how Green Bay was able to do to Dallas what they were able to do, and it's like, wow, their defense really came alive. But when you have trouble stopping the run and you're playing against a team that is unwilling to run the ball anyways, and then when they got down, were especially unwilling to run the ball with any sort of conviction in that game, it makes it very, very easy on the Green Bay Packers defense. And they front ran all the way through that game. Dak Prescott did Dak Prescott things. Jordan Love was absolutely fantastic, but that style played perfectly into their hands. Now, what I will say is this is a defense that's given up over 200 yards rushing, I believe, 3 or 4 times this year. But over the last 3 regular season games, only gave up 88 yards per game, including a week against Chicago, who runs for 144 yards per game, second in the league on average. Now, I know a lot of that is Justin Fields.
Right.
But Justin Fields didn't play a portion of this season, and they still were number 2 in the league in rushing yards per game. And Green Bay held them to 79. So I don't know if that means that they're turning a corner. Go ahead.
If you don't mind, I'll add to that because I understand the point you're making, and I know what your eventual point is, and it's going to agree with me. But I do want to address this because I've seen this Green Bay defense has been very good since like a certain point. 3 weeks ago, which was kind of considered like in your threshold, they gave up 300 yards to Bryce Young. That was the last points the Panthers offense scored in the year.
Mhm.
Let me repeat
Mhm.
that. The Panthers offense got shut out for 2 straight weeks, and Bryce Young threw for 300 yards, and they scored 30 points against the Green Bay Packers defense. Did they turn a corner against the Minnesota Vikings? Well, 5th-round pick Jaron Hall, who I kind of liked out of BYU. I kind of liked his arm talent. I'm not going to lie to you, but I didn't like him starting year 1 on Sunday Night Football against the Green Bay Packers.
Right.
And he was then replaced by Nick Mullins. Like, that doesn't make sense to me in terms of them scoring on offense against the Green Bay Packers. And then finally, Chicago. Jesse's absolutely right. They had an impressive performance against Chicago, especially if you look at Chicago's preceding games. But to me, that's a divisional matchup that changes the variables a little bit. And Green Bay statistically, historically owns under Matt LaFleur Chicago. They've never lost to Chicago. That's a matchup that's favorable for them. They understand that simplistic offense. Luke Getsy comes from where, Jesse? The Green Bay Packers. He was the Green Bay Packers quarterback coach. They understand that offense. They understand the philosophy of it. They understand how to stop it. They had an impressive performance against the Dallas defense. They seemed on their P's and Q's for everything the Dallas offense, I call them the Dallas defense, was going to offer. I think that's a really fair point by you, Jesse, if we're looking at Green Bay's defense improving. They played against Dallas better than any of those games. But those last 3 games, as an example, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but to me, that's just missing context in terms of how they performed. They did not perform well against Carolina. The Minnesota game to me was more about, hey, Jaron Hall is not ready to play football, and Nick Mullins evidently sucks. No offense to him, no offense to his grandpa, but like that's just the case of it. And then they play Chicago really well, similar to how the Niners, even at their worst, matched up with certain teams in their division well, right? Like the Rams at their worst matched up with the Niners pretty well in the Harbaugh era. It's just certain matchups that make things happen in division games. I know where you're going. I just wanted to add that in because I've seen that argument a while. Go ahead. My bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're 100% right. And that's exactly where I was headed. The 49ers are going to be able to run the ball at will on this team.
100%.
And the 49ers are not a one-dimensional team. Even Chicago, for as good as they are running, much like Dallas, where they're a one-dimensional style offense, Chicago is a little bit of that as well. I mean, Justin Fields is still trying to develop as a passer of the football. So, of course, you're going to key in on the run. And once you stop that, you feel confident that you can help out in the pass game. The 49ers, there's nothing to key in on. What are you going to do? Are you going to stack the box and allow Purdy to beat you over the top with Brandon Ayuk getting behind your defense? Are you going to go too high and allow them to run the football or play close to the line of scrimmage with their screens? There's just no way out for the Packers defense in this one. They will get exposed. The 49ers will win this one 34-24, although I feel like it could be a little bit that score may be closer than what the actual game is. I could see Green Bay scoring a late garbage time touchdown to make it look closer and get within 10. I'm taking the 49ers and the points, and I feel very, very good about that.
Couple of the things to add in here, I think, that are important. Green Bay's linebackers give up on average over an 80% reception rate.
Right.
So they're not coverage guys. And then there was a great article that I read today. I think it was my man Kyle Posey who had it, and it was really good. And it was just about how Brock Purdy's completion percentage is only 63% out of the empty set, but he averages 11.2 yards per attempt off the empty. And Packers defense was the 8th worst in the NFL against empty sets this year. Dallas went to the empty set in the wild card round, but not until the third quarter, and they were down 20, and they had a lot of success going empty. And then Green Bay's 27th in DVOA against the tight end. Also, there may not be a Jair Alexander, and Carrington Valentine, the 7th-round pick, allowed 11.6 yards per reception this season on 70 targets. So
this is a little bit of, hey, Ladarius Gunter started the NFC Championship game and guarded Julio Jones versus Kyle Shanahan in 2016. That's how it feels a little bit with Carrington Valentine, doesn't it?
Totally. And then I will say the Packers run defense, we said 28th, and McCaffrey this week, guys. I mean, he said it at his locker, almost gave me chills when he was talking this week because he was so serious. And he's like, it's been urgency here since OTAs. And you know what? Damn if that's not what I saw as well. I mean, that's exactly what I felt like we saw. And you guys saw camp. I know Jesse came out for camp. CMC was on a totally different level. The Niners are going to put the ball in his hands in this game, and I just don't see him being denied. And then the question I guess I would have, and my one question that I'm not really sure what we're going to see here, is Purdy led the NFL this year in passer rating when pressured. So what does Joe Barry do? He played a lot of too high safety looks against Dallas. But does he pressure Brock and give him defined reads? Does he rush 4? I mean, I was talking to Colt McKivitz and he said, hey, one thing that really stands out about their D line is they rush 5 a lot. But are they going to rush 5? I think they're probably going to rush 4 and drop 7 and make Brock, try to copy the Ravens a little bit. But that to me is the ultimate question is what's Joe Barry's plan of attack against the Niners? But I think if the Niners just don't turn it over and run the heck out of it, Brock Purdy takes care of the football. I think they're going to win the game and maybe win by 10 or 12.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. One thing that Benkert brought up, Kurt Benkert, who's he was a backup for the Packers. He was here briefly.
He's another. The best tweet I've seen all year is that 2023 is the year of quarterbacks that 99% of people have never heard of turning into the great analysts of football, right? You got JTO taking over. You got Kyle Sloter taking over. You got Banker teaching people how to run Shanahan's scheme versus Madden. Yeah. He's like out here versus 10-year-olds on Madden. Like, hey guys, you see this too high safety look? It could be quarters. It could be cover 2. It could be quarters or it could be cover 2. Watch me. I'm going to isolate this guy in protection. It's like, dude, you're playing Madden. You're playing Madden.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. But I thought he did bring up a point that was interesting, and the fact that Green Bay for 4 weeks has been playing playoff level football because they couldn't lose, and the 49ers haven't played a playoff style game or really any game that mattered since Christmas. That's great and all, but the 49ers are just supremely talented.
They were playing a playoff style game when they lost Tommy DeVito and them, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
It was playoff style for them when they lost in New York. It was kind of like, oh my God, the skies have opened up for Green Bay. They play a crappy schedule down the end of the season, and Green Bay looks good. Jordan Love has been playing good football. And again,
they lost 2 weeks in a row after beating Kansas City.
Exactly. To refer to Cade and them from Montravert Academy, just to give my Pistons some sort of shout out, some sort of positivity this year. It's been a rough year for us. But in terms of that, it was kind of like that when they lost to Tommy DeVito and them. Because it was really Tommy DeVito and them.
Yeah, it really was. All right, let's get to these super chats real quick. Samir says, quad box with the coach next week?
Sure.
Bring it.
I will say this, and I've said it, and these guys all know that I have a concern when it's us 4 because I know that show's going to last forever. But I think all 3 of us here can agree. The 49ers go to the Super Bowl. The week leading up to that game, we got to quad box it. We'll bring in coach, and we'll make it the What do you call it? The big show? We'll make it the super big show is what we'll call that one.
We'll give people all 4 hours, right? 1 hour for Larry to talk, 1 hour for myself to talk, maybe 1 hour, 20 minutes for myself to talk. We'll give the coach an hour and then Jesse.
And we'll give me an hour to read the super chats. It'll be perfect.
Exactly,
let's go.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Dabu Da. Hold on. Why is this not pulling up here? Dabu Da says, do y'all see Christian Ponder getting injured this week? I hope not. Let's hope that's not the case.
Is Christian Ponder playing football still?
He is. Yeah. Little do you know. All day, every day, Kim says, do you all think that Brock could have done what Jordan has done with Green Bay? Be 100% honest. Larry, I'm looking at you.
That's a call out. Crew, go ahead.
Let me hold on. Let me answer this one first because
Jesse's going.
Larry, I think I know what Larry's going to say, and I think he is being honest. Here's what we have to understand, right? Jordan Love has been fantastic, and I don't know who long-term the better quarterback out of these two are going to be. But what I can say is one thing we know for certain is Brock Purdy going into this season was much more equipped than Jordan Love because he had done it and he had been in the playoffs. So if you had put him week 1 on Green Bay, keeping the offense the same, they probably wouldn't have sputtered early. Maybe he wouldn't have been as hot late as Jordan Love, but Green Bay most likely would have been just as good record-wise, if not slightly better, because Brock Purdy going into this season is further along in his development than Jordan Love, who has been in the league for longer but hadn't really played. So I'm going to take some of the heat off you, Larry. I think that, yes, absolutely, for sure, they could have been as good because of that development process and where they were at. Larry, I'll let you answer. I assume you're going to agree with me here.
Well, I do. I mean, I just think Purdy is, I get it. I do get it. There's a lot of people, especially if you haven't watched it consistently, or if you only watch the Raven game, let's say, that just think that, Brock's not the guy and this and that. But I think it's mostly because all of Brock's greatest gifts are not things that you can see on the TV screen. You have to talk to him to realize this guy is like absolutely the most competitive guy that you're going to come across. And where does competitive fire come into this mix? I mean, it's definitely a factor, but you can't see competitive fire. And so, I mean, it's just so many of his gifts, I think, they're just, he processes well. You can't really see that. You can't look into his head. His timing's amazing. It's really, I mean, it's his time. He's on time all the time, most of the time. Wait, yeah. But you know what I'm saying? He's on
60%
time.
of the time, he's always on time, is what
Right.
you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, he's on time a lot. He's tough. He's accurate. He's got great feel. He's got several elite traits that you just can't see. So I get it. I understand. I mean, Jordan Love's bigger. He's got a better arm. He's probably, they could probably beat Brock in a 40-yard dash.
Think
And
so?
yeah, probably. I mean, Brock would maybe beat him in the first
rumor
10
has
yards.
it Brock has a 1.55 10-yard split, only 0.01 seconds slower than Lamar Jackson, who allegedly has a 1.54 10-yard split. Now, if you look that up, you won't find that anywhere, but it's alleged.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just saying, I get it, but I don't understand why people, continue to doubt Purdy. But you know what? This is what the playoffs are about, right? I mean, if he doesn't do it, people will second guess him. If he does it, people will crown him, and to me right now, Brock Purdy reminds me of where Joe Montana was in the early 80s, like 1983. It's like so many people wanted to say Joe was about Joe's success was about Walsh, and Joe's success was about other things, Ronnie and the defense, and and then he got into that Super Bowl against the Dolphins and he outdueled Marino and he won the MVP. And from that point on, nobody ever questioned Joe again. And I kind of think that Purdy's in that same spot. It's about Shanahan, it's Debo, it's Ayuk, it's Kittle, it's about all these other guys. The guys who believe the most in Brock Purdy are guys that are around him. It's Matt Campbell, it's Shanahan, it's Chase Young, it's Trent Williams, it's what I mean. So it's the guys who like kind of see him for what he is, and they know that he's the real deal, as Shanahan said, to sum it up. So you know what, I get it, and a lot of those other people are going to need to see him actually beat all these teams and win the Super Bowl. And he gets it as well. And that's why he keeps saying, hey, you know what? We'll see when this is all said and done. He's made like 5 references this year to, hey, we'll see when this is all said and done. And I think that's a guy right there who's going to play some great ball coming up right now. So I think he's better than Jordan Love.
Yeah,
I
think this conversation is a lot more complicated than people want to admit. I think the second half of Jordan Love's season has had people kind of who had the wrong impression of the first half of his season, like, will be like, oh my God, Jordan Love is a lot better than we thought. But here's the issue I have, okay? This Green Bay offense ascension and just simply referring it to as, oh, Jordan Love, like, oh my God, I've never seen a quarterback turn it around. That's bullshit. That's crap. You haven't watched their offense all year. You know what their issues were in the beginning of the year? Sure, they had some Jordan Love issues. Sure, Jordan Love's ball placement looks a little bit better. Sure, Jordan Love looks more confident. But when Bakhtiari went down game one, excuse me, when Aaron Jones went down game one, they had issues blocking. They had issues running the football. They had all of these kinds of issues. Guess what? All of those issues also went away when Jordan Love started playing better. That came together. Matt LaFleur was pulling his hair out at the beginning of this season because all of these young receivers who, are talented players were struggling. They had assignment issues. This was one of the messiest offenses to watch at the beginning of the year. I've watched a lot of Packers games in the last week just to be able to go back and watch. And it's funny to go back and watch them week 2 versus watching them week 18 because the improvement is tremendous, not just with Jordan Love, but with their offensive line, with their receivers. Everything about their offense is better. And that's where this conversation becomes complicated to me because we see Jordan Love having to deal with an offense that has to grow around him and that has to grow with him. And we see them all grow together and play better. I don't even know how to answer this question. I think, Jesse, your point about Brock being more developed than Love is right on, but I don't know how to answer this question because I've seen only Brock play with an offense of players that are developed in the offense around him, that consistently execute. And it's like, I don't even as good as Love has played, and I think Love is a good quarterback, I can't even 100% credit him for Green Bay's turnaround because I feel like Green Bay's turnaround has been a team turnaround. It's not just been a Jordan Love thing where Jordan Love turned from, the worst quarterback ever to the greatest quarterback ever in a span of 8 weeks. It's been their offense in a lot of ways grew from week 7 or week 3 or week 4 to week 18 to week 17 to week 16. And that's where this conversation to me is very limited when you just ask, could Purdy have done what Love has done? Because we've never really seen Purdy have to deal with young players growing into an offense and developing. He's dealing with players who, have all played very well with Jimmy Garoppolo and played in that situation. And he also is developed in that situation, unlike Jordan Love, who had played limited football and still needed his growth as well. He also is developed in that situation, immediately played well in that situation. So I understand the premise of the question. I think that the question has a lot of validity, but it's hard for me to answer when you look at the two nuances of the situation because I have no examples to go off of. And it's hard for me to project something that I don't have examples to go off of. Do I think Purdy could have done what Love has done? Sure. But what does that actually mean? I can't even back that up with any examples of what I think he would have done other than I think he's a good quarterback. And do I think Love played very well? Yes, but I can't even back that up completely because I also think Green Bay's entire offense, offensive line, receivers, all of that has had an entire improvement throughout this season. And it's hard to just say, oh, look, Jordan Love turned from, Jordan Love to Patrick Mahomes in a span of 8 weeks, because I think it's been a growing process for the entirety of Green Bay's offense.
Yeah, I just think they're both playing really good football, and it should be fun to watch. And if they both are who people think they are long term, this could be a fun little rivalry between two historic franchises.
Oh, yeah.
So that Green Bay San Francisco rivalry might be fully renewed. We'll see. Samir says, I like Andy's analogy. Andy was my guest last night on Behind Enemy Lines. He says, in a million Doctor Strange simulations, Green Bay wins in one.
Dude, you know what's funny?
Yeah.
People used to get mad at me for saying it, but when I used to say the Trey Lance pick made no sense to me, I used to say that Shanahan had seen 14 million or whatever different options of this working out, and this is how it made sense. And in a lot of ways, that take is actually aged accurately, even though it is not aged in a way that I thought it would. Nobody would have projected them picking Trey Lance would have turned into this. But literally, it's 14 million simulations. And could you have ever expected the last 3 years to play out the way that it has, and for it to play out the way that it has and the Niners to be successful?
One thing I think that you have to also comment on Jordan Love. It's been really almost like 2 different years for him. I mean, look at the way the season started and look at the way it's finished. I mean, in the first 9 games, they go 3-6. He throws 14 touchdowns, but 10 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
And then since then, he's had 9 games, including this Dallas game. They've gone, I guess 7-2, and he's had 21 touchdowns and 1 pick. The one thing that he's doing, he was sacked 19 times, by the way, in the first half of the year, and only 11 times in the second half of the year. So I think his offensive line has definitely improved their protection around him.
Yeah.
But it's the big difference is he's just taking really good care of the football in the second half of the year.
They were also throwing picks at the beginning of the year because they were having assignment mistakes galore with those receivers.
Well, because you know why? Because
Watson was hurt.
They're all young. They're baby receivers.
Dobbs is super young. Jaden Reed, he comes from a good place. He's a good player. I may or may not have seen him in high school, but he's a terrific football player. He may or may not have crossed up my buddy in Y ball. Not that anybody cares about that, but the guy's a freak. Okay. And so like that's the situation with their receivers. It was a lot of young players and they grew into that. And so that's where I kind of find it irritating when people go, oh my God, look at Jordan Love. Like he's been the best quarterback ever. And he was the worst quarterback ever to begin with because they had so many issues on their offense and Aaron Jones being hurt. I mean, AJ Dillon sucks. AJ Dillon stinks, okay? They're better off without him being on the field. They were better off without him not playing the last couple of games, okay? I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. So I just look at their entirety of their offense, and I find it frustrating for people to just label it as Jordan Love sucked at the beginning of the year, and now Jordan Love is excellent. Because I think Jordan Love has been somewhere in between the entire year. In a lot of ways, I think his process has been the exact same. He's been as talented as a thrower. He's been more confident. The bigger underlying point to Green Bay is their entire offense has grown up in ways. Jesse, Larry, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. I've never seen an offensive line grow up like this, receivers grow up like this, tight ends grow up like this. And that's where I really compliment Green Bay. That's right.
And a lot of people were like, hey, Green Bay's not going to be good this year. Why? Well, they didn't sign a veteran tight end. They didn't sign a veteran receiver. Gutekunst went into the draft, and you can't manufacture the reps and put a quarterback on the same page with receivers by snapping your fingers, no matter how bad you want it. But now here late in the year, as you know, because he did hit on all these picks, they're all really coming of age. And the guy that worries me the most going into this game is Dontavion Wicks, because he's got 4 touchdowns this season, and they've all come in the past 3 games. And he's starting to really bust out right now. So you already have Jaden Reed and Dobbs.
You think the Niners are going to blitz 0 and let Jordan Love stand back there and throw a free access post from 20 yards?
No.
I don't think so.
Hope not.
I don't think so.
Right before the half, that's when I would do it.
Right.
This is on the field Wilkes, not booth Wilkes. Smack Jones said he made it through the first week of fatherhood. Shout out to you, Smack Jones. Glad you made it, man. Remember last week he was in the chat on day one.
Larry told him, get out of here. Go enjoy
get out of here.
I'm like, seriously. The last thing you want to be doing is like 35 years from now going, oh, yeah, I can remember the night my kid was born. Vish said to Larry, you don't know Jack. Larry said, watch out for the cover 2. It's like, come on. Yeah, it's not going to age well.
Lobs all day tapping
Larry,
in.
Watch out for the cover 2.
Lobs all day tapping in. He says, Jordan Love is not at the level of CJ Stroud. Not close. I don't know that you're going out on a major limb there, Lobs. I agree. CJ Stroud's on a different level.
I did see his tweet like that things are not like, I hope everything is good with you and your family, but my guy, who's here talking about Stroud versus Love? Like, where did this become a conversation?
He says Stroud already a top 3 quarterback in the NFL as a rookie. I've seen enough tape. He has Purdy level processing plus more talent. Love does not have the elite level processing. I haven't watched enough Love. I can't tell you that, but that's exactly it. I mean, CJ Stroud has a bigger arm, better accuracy, a bigger frame, and the same level of processing as Purdy. He is an absolute beast. I don't know about top 3 already, but he's making his way. He's a very, very, very good player. You said something happened to him. What's going on Twitter? What did he say?
Oh, I just saw Lobs tweet something. I follow Lobs on Twitter, by the way. Shout out to Lobs.
Yeah, I do too, but I didn't see what he said. My
He
algorithm
tweeted,
sucks.
yeah. Well, first of all, the algorithm for everybody sucks. But he tweeted,
Yeah.
poor guy tweeted, and I want to be more serious when I say this. He tweeted something about like that his family is going through something and he needs some prayers. So that's where I haven't seen him back on the frame. And maybe he has been back. My algorithm just sucks. But yeah, that's where I wanted to shout out to him. But
Yeah.
in terms of this, top 3 quarterback, I gotta probably watch the entire season, every game. I've watched a few games on film, but I'm not 100% sure there. Purdy level processing, 100%, the talent, all of that. Love doesn't have an elite level processing, perhaps. I haven't watched all 17 games of Love this year. But, I will say that Love's processing, Love's ability to play quarterback within the system was kind of my pleasant surprise in what I've watched so far coming into this game. His ability to recognize things, his ability to throw quickly. Larry, you and I on Tuesday talked a lot about, hey, like Love is not better than Rodgers, but there's 2 things that's different from Rodgers. One, it's his ability to stand in and play within the offense and really stand in under pressure, right? Like the guy throws the ball really aggressively and well with people around him, which to me, Jesse, you and I always talk about draft quarterbacks. Like that to me is the skill set of quarterbacks. Do you throw the ball with people around you? That's the NFL to me. And then the other thing is he's more aggressive than I remember Rodgers being at the end. Like when he sees it, he's got, I mean,
He
now that
uncorks
we're
it.
referring to Purdy and Stroud, he's got a Purdy Stroud quality where it's like almost like if he sees it, feels it, he just rips it. He lets the ball go and he lives with the result, which is a cool quality for a quarterback to have. Again, I'm not 100% all the way there with Love. I haven't seen it all. I haven't seen it with Stroud either. But I do think in general that's a cool quality to have for a quarterback. And I do think that like that, those are 2 things that are different, quote unquote, from Rodgers, but I don't know that they make a drastic difference in the result of this football game. All of us picked the Niners to win fairly comfortably. But I would mention those 2 things that I've seen about Love. I'm not sure what you guys think, but that's
Well, I'm
what
not going to limit. I'm not going to put any limits on Jordan Love. I mean, you make your name for yourself in the playoffs. He just had almost a perfect quarterback rating against a top 5
Him and
secondary.
CJ Stroud had identical stats.
Right.
Identical stats. That was
Right.
crazy.
Top 5 secondary on the road. And not only that, there's 2 things I like about Love. One, he's fearless. He reminds me a little bit of a young Brett Favre
Right.
in that he'll throw from any angle and he'll drift. I don't think his movement ability is that great as far as like, I mean, I know he's got the ability to move, but I don't think he moves creatively within the pocket or anything. But what he does was he gets to the top of his drop and then he'll just drift backwards because he's got plenty of arm strength and buy his receivers that extra time. So he's pretty fearless. And the other thing is he hunts big plays. And that's what I like. I like young quarterbacks that hunt big plays. And that's what Jordan Love does. He's not looking to check it down. He's more like he's like a Brock in that he's looking to make a play down the field. And he's looking for that big gainer. And he'll drift backwards to buy himself more time. He did it twice against Dallas. And he, it wasn't like he hit a guy in stride, but he waited for his guy to break open and then just kind of put it out there for him.
Right.
It didn't look pretty, but it was a big gainer.
He throws those Rodgers-esque balls, right? With how his feet being set, with his feet being from funny platforms, and he just lets it go.
You
And
can
he
see
really
the
lets it go
influence.
with confidence. You can see that, right? You can see that for sure. I'm with you, Larry. I just want to go through his entire season before I start commenting because I frankly, this has been the least Packers football I've watched this year until this week, just because like I used to watch a lot of them simply because Aaron Rodgers is one of my favorite players of all time. And I used to enjoy watching them. That's not necessarily been the case this year, but I understand kind of where Lobs is coming from. And perhaps I would call Purdy a better processor, probably Stroud a better processor. But I haven't necessarily been unimpressed. Like you said, Larry, it's tough to put a ceiling on a player that's improved so drastically from week 1 Now his entire offense, like I mentioned, is improved from week 1 to week 18. But it's also just like he does seem to do the little right things that we believe conventionally builds a good quarterback, right? Like we brought up the Wicks touchdown is kind of a joke, but like jokes aside, like seeing zero that quickly, standing in there, like Larry said, and kind of drifting back, understanding the timing of the play and all of that was like very mature, kind of veteran-ish quarterback play. So he does seem to show a lot of qualities. We'll see what turns out with him. But right now, like Larry said, it's tough to put a ceiling on him, as
One
it's
last
tough to put a ceiling on any young quarterback that looks really good.
one last thing. I hunted down Logan Ryan today in the Niner
Ooh.
locker room because he's such a cerebral player.
He's so smart, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a veteran. He's been in 2 Super Bowls. And I said, what really stands out about Love to you? And he's like, it's that he's so in sync with LaFleur. And so he's and LaFleur, according to Shanahan, is really, really good at coaching the quarterback and coaching the technique of the quarterback. So I mean, I think what we're really seeing is Jordan Love, the beginning. 2 years from now, he's going to be so much better than where he is right now. I think so. And I think we're just seeing his raw talent right now. And he's got a great bevy of weapons, and they're going to get nothing but more and more reps together. They're going to get more and more in lockstep. I think Green Bay is going to be a really, really good offensive team in the next couple of years.
I want to say this about CJ Stroud as well. I mean, obviously, love CJ Stroud. I think that he's going to be great, but to
From
say
day
he's
one,
top
by the way.
3,
Give yourself that pat on the back.
right. But to say he's top 3, I got to see. It's the same thing that I said about Purdy. I got to see years stacked. I'm just not going to put somebody in the top 5 or top 3 or whatever over guys that have put together 3, 4, 5, 6 years in this league at elite level play. Sure. Does it look like he has all the intangibles to do that? Has he come out of the gates firing? Absolutely. Do I expect him to eventually be there? Absolutely. But I'm not going to disrespect guys that have been doing this for many, many years. The league will humble anybody. And even, Patrick Mahomes to a certain extent, as great as he is, and we all believe he's the best quarterback in the league, and we're not changing our opinion based off this year, but even greats can have down years from time to time. So we'll see where his career goes. I think he's going to be awesome, but I can't give him that in year one. It's a little disrespectful to the others.
You nailed it. He looks like one of those guys. He looks like he has every intangible to consistently be one of those guys. He looks like one of those, like, oh my God, we've never seen, like, not we've never seen, but this is a generational change the franchise. Like, Krug and I on Tuesday were talking about Nick Caserio. Like, shoot, we didn't know what direction the Texans were going with 1 year coach, 1 year coach, 1 year contract, 1 year contract. And all of a sudden they get this quarterback and we're like, Houston's the most exciting young team in the sport. All of that is true. But like you said, we'll find out. We'll find out if he's going to be one of those guys. Everything says he's going to be, but it's not necessarily true. And like you said, he's got to stack those years.
Gizmo Maltese says, can we do a better job pressuring Love than Dallas? I would hope so. With Eric Armstead returning, they have got to do a better job, because if they don't, Love will probably do his damn thing. And then you've got yourself a shootout, which is not necessarily ideal, in my opinion. Not that they wouldn't win that, but you want to win this one, and you want to win it kind of putting a stranglehold on them.
It's a big question, though, because Green Bay is number 2 in offensive line pass block win rate. They didn't give up a single sack to Dallas. Dallas only got 3 hits on Love the entire afternoon. They silenced Micah Parsons. And, Bosa does have 10.5 sacks, 35 hits on the quarterback, which is a lot. And Chase Young does have 7.5 sacks. I think the advantage for the Niners is Hargrave. I think this is where you're going to see Hargrave really come of age. Hargrave had 7 sacks. I think Hargrave inside is going to have some success.
He's got a tough matchup. Arguably the best player on Green Bay's offensive line is number 74. And
Hargrave, though,
everywhere.
I get the vibe around Hargrave, guys, is that Hargrave is a guy that kind of is a money player, and he's pacing himself, and it's like he's gotten better in bigger games. And now then he actually held up really well without Armstead. Now you're going to put Eric back in there, fully
That's
rested.
huge.
And I think I forget who it was today that was telling me, oh, Waggy. I was talking to Waggy, just
your guy,
my guy Waggy. And I said, what's it been like this week? And he's like, first of all, Eric is just absolutely, it's like he picked up like he didn't miss any time. He's looking better than he has all year. So I think the time off for Eric and Hargrave kind of stepping it up, I think that foursome for the Niners is going to be more impactful, let's say, than they've been at any point this year.
Fish and Chips says, Larry, you silenced Brother Bob. You're denying us laughs.
I apologize.
What happened?
No, I don't think anything. I think no. I just think that Brother Bob is keeping it cool. Lobs, that's awesome. Lobs, he says, I'm good now, bro. Thank you for your prayers, Vish. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Lob says, if you think Love is better than Purdy, you don't know ball. I'm just gonna go on a little, not a big rant, just a 2-second thing real quick.
For it, Jesse, it's your show, buddy.
Here's the deal.
Just reminding you.
I hate this you don't know ball. Like there's 2 or 3 things that are consistently thrown out there. And this is not just a you thing, Lobs. It's okay to have difference in opinions. Now, I haven't watched enough Love to say one way or another. I really couldn't tell you. I don't have an opinion. I just said that I think Purdy could do with Green Bay this year what Love did based off of the development process. I don't know who's going to be better long term, and I'll watch Love a lot more this offseason and make a determination on where I think he is. That being said, anytime that we disagree with opinions, it's either you don't know ball or you don't watch. And it's like, well, maybe people watch and know ball, but they just have a difference of opinion than you. Is that not okay? I mean, that's the number one thing is like, oh, this person has this opinion of Purdy, so clearly they don't watch 49er games. Like, are you sure about that? Because I would bet money that some of these people that have these opinions actually watch more football around the league than you do. Now, maybe they don't watch enough 49er football, but they watch a lot of football in general, and then they watch some 49er football and compare that with what they're seeing around the league to make an informed opinion. I just hate that anybody who has a different take than me doesn't know ball or doesn't watch ball. Those are the 2 worst arguments you can make. Sometimes people just have difference of opinions, and I think that's okay.
Everybody's always trying to drop the A-bomb on everybody. It's like the walk-off shot.
Yeah.
All I got to say, Krug, is hearing the guy to my upper left talk about that, he doesn't know ball.
Nice. Well done. All day, every day, Kim says
Jesse got kicked out of Portland. He had to leave the state because he didn't know ball. Yeah. You don't know ball. Here's your walking papers. Right.
All day, every day, Kim says, Vish, the point you made about Brock having vets around him, 7 All-Pros, is the reason why he has doubters. I doubt. I look at CJ Stroud, Love, and think Brock could not do what they've done. Just my opinion. Now, hold on. I think we should separate this. CJ Stroud is over here, okay? I think at least Vish and I agree. I don't know where you're at with it, Larry. I think CJ Stroud is kind of in a tier of his own right now. Out of these 3, that's just my opinion. I don't know enough about Love to say.
Looks that way right now.
Of who I would take based off of what I know about them, what I thought about them coming out of college, all those things. CJ Stroud, to me, I'm setting aside for right now. Love and Brock is a different conversation. I think, again, I do think Brock could do what Love did because he was further along in his development. And we'll see long term. I'm not saying he's better than Love or that Love couldn't do what Brock did. I just don't know. I haven't watched enough Love, but I have watched a lot of Brock. And I think that Brock's pretty good and could do pretty well in Green Bay, at least for this season, based off of that experience level and what he would have brought to Green Bay going through a playoff run and what have you. What are your thoughts, Larry? Do you think CJ Stroud's off on his own, or do you think Brock's better than CJ Stroud, or is in the conversation? Well, how do you view CJ?
I mean, first of all, you always have to look at people against like a constant backdrop. So I look at,
hold on, I want to say this. If your opinion is different than mine, you don't know ball, but go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a first year player it's one thing, compared to a second-year player. But then the other key factor is your blindside protector. I mean, CJ Stroud has walked into a situation where it's year one, and yet, usually it's like you start with the quarterback, and then Joe Burrow's like, okay, but I got no receivers. Okay, and then you draft Jamar Chase. Okay, but I have no offensive line, and I'm getting my ass kicked. All right, now we'll start drafting offensive line. So it's kind of a bumpy road. This guy walked into a situation where they made some really good decisions. Tank Dell, Nico Collins. These guys were really good, great receivers this year for this guy. 2 tight ends who can catch the ball, and a phenomenal top shelf premier left tackle. So that's almost like an ideal spot. And then Bobby Slowick has got a good offense. And so I think Stroud looks more impressive because he's doing it at a younger age than these other guys and without the experience. Jordan Love didn't look like this as a rookie. Brock Purdy didn't look like this early in his rookie year, right? But CJ Stroud has. But then you got to factor in, yeah, but there's Laramie Tunsil there, and he's got other weapons, and he's got a good play caller, and he's got a good defense. So, it's like, once again, I'll go back to the Brian Billick. The hardest thing to separate is the quarterback versus the rest of the team and what's going on around the quarterback. There's a lot of really good things going on around the quarterback in Houston for him as a rookie. So he's looking better. And as far as Jordan Love, I think his whole season is predicated on the fact that Green Bay's offensive line has come together this year, and those weapons now have reps, and I think those weapons are all legit. I think Kraft is a future Pro Bowler. I think the same thing about Musgrave. I love Reed. I love Dobbs. I love so you got to hit in the draft, but no quarterback can do it by himself. He's got to have weapons. That's why when people are like, they discount Purdy because his weapons are firmly established. Trent is firmly established as a great tackle. Ayuk and Debo and Kittle and CMC are firmly established.
Right. They all made first team All-Pro before they played with
and
Purdy.
They're veterans and everybody knows their names. But in reality, if we fast forward 3 years, some of those Green Bay guys, they have no Pro Bowlers. All those guys that didn't go to the Pro Bowl will be going to the Pro Bowl. And a lot of these guys with Houston that people don't know much about, these guys are going to be good players going forward. So, Brock's better than you think. And those guys are probably better than you think, but it's a team game. You know what I mean? I'm impressed by all three, to be honest. And I don't know how to exactly grade it out other than Stroud, obviously he's very precocious, right? He's doing it as a first-year guy, but he may have the best left tackle going, and he definitely has some good weapons around him.
He only played 14 games, though. They did play without him, and they played very well without him as well.
Who?
Laramie Tunsil.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, Tunsil is a premier.
They also played without CJ Stroud and did not play so well without CJ Stroud.
They looked terrible without CJ Stroud. They looked awful. And this is where you go, Nico Collins, Larry. I will say this for myself. I think anything of Nico Collins, the football player, before he got with CJ Stroud and at home in Houston turned into freaking the greatest receiver I've ever seen outside of Julio Jones in the first quarter of the 2012 NFC Championship game. Like, I didn't expect that. And so maybe it's just me underrating Nico Collins. But I think a lot of the perception of how we look at Houston and the positivity of Houston, I mean, we got to look back and say, this is an organization that fired 2 coaches back to back after 1 year. This is an organization that year after year under Nick Caserio was doing this 1-year free agency crap, right? Like Jimmy Ward, 1-year deal. Dalton Schultz, 1-year deal. It was everybody. They would sign a veteran for a 1-year deal. And it's like, what are they doing? What are they committing to? What are they pivoting to? And now we look at so many elements of their football team, and this is a D'Amico credit, but to me, we look at so many elements of their football team as positive, and that positivity comes from having a quarterback that we all think looks like one of those guys. Now, we'll find out if he's one of those guys because Houston is pretty reliant on the fact that he's one of those guys. But right now, this year, he looks like one of those guys, right? Like Derek Stingley, very talented player. Like you called him a blue chipper, Krug. He's definitely a blue chipper in terms of talent. Those first 2 years didn't look like he was going to be one of the best corners in football. This year does, right?
Well,
like,
he was hurt.
He was a talented player, right? Like Jonathan Greenyer. Did I know he was one of the best edges in football until now? Nope. This year, he turned into one of the best edges in football. So a lot of really, really good things happen when you find a quarterback that's a force multiplier and keeps you in football games you don't belong in. I think we start to see the talent of other players around you. But I don't say that to discredit the point you make, because I actually agree with it in a lot of aspects. To me, Houston is just this tricky situation where I don't want to misremember what they were 17 games before they got this quarterback that just looks all world.
I think if everybody had a great line, I might take Burrow first. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the way Joe Burrow plays the position, and I thought that game that he played at Levi's earlier this year was freaking amazing. But he also has Chase, and he's got Higgins.
T. Higgins.
So it's
Tyler
like
Boyd.
Yeah, I mean, he's
Give
got some
me
weapons.
Kirk Cousins.
You taking Kirk?
Yeah, of course, Captain Kirk. Come on. Elite Archer says, will Kyle have Daddy on the sideline with him this year? He will just piss himself again without Daddy there to hold his hand.
Hey,
no,
I like when Daddy holds my hand. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, my dad's a nice guy. I like when he makes me feel secure when he holds my hand.
Lobs all day says the change Green Bay made was leaving extra blockers on block and release. He struggles more with 5 guys out on routes, plus win with processing, timing, anticipation. It also is how they have time to attack deep now. I like it. Lob says all day barbershop talk, not the SRS when I say that, bro. Oh, not that serious when I say that, bro. Yeah. No, I get it. It was actually less about you saying it, Lobs. I know what you're saying. More so, like, I just see
Jesse
that
was
and
sick of
I hate it.
ball. You don't.
I
know
hate
ball.
it.
Lob's a busy man because he had time for SRS, but not time for the rest of that word.
Well, he is in med school, Krug. Have some respect.
Very busy man.
DJ Rummed says response to that, you don't know ball after all. How many QBs have been drafted early and failed? Brock being the last pick is messing with people's minds. Sure, but Brock is the exception, right? And out of all of the guys that you look at as top 10 quarterbacks, yeah, Drew Brees is great, but he's an outlier. Most of them have big arms and were high picks and, those other things. So, you can have your Tom Brady's and your Drew Breeses, but most guys, look at the playoffs right now. Every single one of them is a first round pick except for Brock.
Do you put Brees in there even? I mean, the guy was like
the top 10 guy
in the second round. He was one of the great. Like, I mean, dude, who has Purdue had that we look at like, holy crap, they're gonna break Big Ten passing yards records?
Aiden O'Connell.
Oh,
thank
sorry.
you.
Yeah, I did forget about AOC. Thank you.
Disrespectful. Golly.
Joe Tiller was a pretty good coach at Purdue back in the day.
He was.
Twisted Clown says, if you don't smash like, you don't know ball. I agree with Twisted Clown. I endorse that message. I really endorse that message. Okay, I got one more for you guys on the way out here.
Dude,
I should have known that the one topic.
For an hour and 57.
I know. I should have known the one topic was gonna. And I'm not gonna get. I'm not gonna.
Warm.
Listen, I'm not going to get into the Amy Trask conversation because I think a lot of people have talked about it. It was, but we've given our opinions on Brock and some of these other guys throughout the conversation naturally. So I don't feel like we need to rehash it. But I do want to ask you this because it may not impact this game. Hell, it may not even impact the next one. But I want the best players playing. And my question is, do you believe the 49ers should be playing Burford or Feliciano? Larry, I'll start with you on this one.
Feliciano. No doubt. Feliciano grades out higher than Burford. Burford still he's a terrific kid. He's a good prospect. He took a backslide this year. He needs more work. He may, I don't know what level offensive lineman he's going to be. But Feliciano is not Brunskill. Brunskill's always been just kind of John Feliciano was a well above average NFL starter for a number of years. He started all of last year with the New York Giants. Heck, he was running around today on the field, and I was like, "Who is that guy?" And I'm like, "Who is that guy?" And somebody reminded me that's Feliciano, and I'm like, "Dude, Feliciano looks great right now." So I think Feliciano definitely is your starter at right guard, and I'd ride with Feliciano the rest of the way, man. Absolutely, no doubt, no hedging. I'm a Feliciano guy the rest of the year.
Vish, what about you?
Yeah, I look, I'm not 100% all the way through all the film that I missed when I was, out of town, but this is how I feel towards this conversation as well. I think Burford is still a very talented player. I don't think this is like I'm writing off Spencer Burford, because I think he has the physical traits and I know how offensive linemen develop. It's just one of those situations of, crew, we talked about this on Tuesday, where I just prefer the veteran player. I'm more confident in the veteran player. I'm more confident that he's going to be assignment sound. I'm just more confident that he's going to look. It's Burford has more talent than Feliciano. I'm just more confident that Feliciano today can maximize more of his talent than Burford can. And that's really what this situation is. I always tend to go towards the veteran player. Now, you could probably argue that that's, hey, a Vish personality trait versus that's a Niners thing, that like I tend to get nervous in situations like this. Therefore, I want things that make more sense and logically make sense to me. And that's why I give such a take. Like, you could definitely argue that, and it's not invalid, but I'm also the one giving the take. And so here I would take Feliciano again. Haven't gone through 100% of the film from the end of the Niners season in terms of being able to evaluate these two guys. But in terms of what I have seen, to me today, Feliciano's the steadier player. I'm 100% agreeing with Krug on this one. I think he nailed every talking point to it. It's not a write-off of Burford. It's just today I feel more confidence in Feliciano. What do you think, Jesse?
Feliciano, by the way, has a dossier on Kenny Clark. Spencer Burford is still putting his together. I'll take Feliciano for that reason.
Dossier. I love
great use of dossier, by the way.
Know.
I do love that.
Seen it used so naturally like that. That was impressive stuff.
Nice. Well done. Well done.
I see your dossier, and
I'll raise I agree. I agree 100%. I think that Feliciano should be playing. I don't like the rotation thing, which they may do again. Feliciano right now is the better player, and if Banks got injured, you would move Feliciano over there, and then you could bring back in Burford. But I just think right now Feliciano is the right play, and I would hate to see that decision in Burford playing over Feliciano be a difference in any game along this path to getting number 6. So I say play Feliciano. I hope you're joking. And you probably are, bud. But I gotta say, like, he was too late of a pick to be a bust, right? Like, we can all agree there.
I think the fact that he started all the games that he started for the 49ers, like, and I guess this is where I like maybe defer from opinions, and I've been tweeting about this a little bit recently. But this idea of what you call a bust, first of all, making the NFL, like, if we put this into percentage terms, in terms of like us in our professions, like, they're already making something that's unlikely to make. So making the NFL, and when we criticize them, it's like they've already been successful in life. They've done something that very limited amount of people get to do who try to do that, which is make the NFL. And then the second part of it, is he a bust? Well, shoot, he might not be the player that you wanted him to be. He might not have developed at the rate that you wanted him to, given that his rookie season was promising, and this year has been kind of, status quo from where his rookie season was. But we take his production as a rookie in better context than we take his production as a second-year player who started and all of that. But the fact that he started this many games as a 5th-round pick and all that, I like the bust classification. Like, these kinds of things bother me a little bit, just because, we have a responsibility to tell the story of these people. 10 years from now, Spencer Burford's career is going to be told by us, by a bunch of other people and all of that. And to call him a bust for a guy that started, like 30 football games already in 2 years? Like, shoot.
Now, come on. You don't know ball. No.
That was awesome. I should have probably let you go first.
I will say this about Burford. He's the physical prototype. He's smart as hell. He played right tackle at University of Texas at San Antonio. Many offensive linemen step into the league and don't play a down in their first 2 years. This guy played a ton early. Our expectations got heightened. He had a regression in year 2. It's a process. Believe in this kid. I do. He's a road grader, man. This is the physical prototype. His career is going to be very successful. He's going to have a 10-year run. So. A lot of us were saying that Banks was a bust. Banks is a road grading left guard, future, Pro Bowler.
Dude, McKivitz was cut after his second year.
You got to give these guys time. The offensive line and the defensive line are technique-rich positions. And I know it doesn't look like it. You see just a bunch of big fat guys. You got to have technique, and it's learned, and it's not the complexity and the level of detail in the college game and compared to the pro game, night and day. Give this kid another year or two. You can't say he's a bust. If anything, he was kind of a early surprise. Played way more early than most people ever would have thought. Especially for where he was drafted. 2 years from now, he's going to be a stalwart on the offensive line, not close to a bust. But I'm still going Feliciano. I'm not, you know what I'm saying?
Of course.
But if Feliciano goes down, it's like I don't think like, oh my God, they're screwed.
Yeah, I agree.
Be running for his life. I believe in Burford. I really do.
That's the point, right? Like ideally, Feliciano and Burford isn't the conversation of who's starting at right guard for who we think is going to be the Super Bowl winning team this year. But that's kind of the situation. Of the two, I would go Feliciano, but this isn't like oh my God, like they don't have a right guard. They have two like very, very okay right guards, of which we prefer the veteran of the more talented young players, but definitely not like something that's great or like completely terrible.
Matthew, going back to the point I made about the top 10 quarterbacks, no, but there's physical traits that when I look at it's funny because a lot of people like to bring up Tom Brady, like, oh, look at where he was picked, and he didn't have the strongest arm, which
dude, he was drafted to play catcher out of high school. No. He was drafted in the MLB to play catcher out of high school.
Speaking of not knowing ball, and you haven't watched enough football. No, I'm just kidding. But Tom Brady had a very strong arm and was 6'4", so those things add up as well. Steve Young was an elite athlete, elite mobility. I mean, a player unlike any other for a period of time, was one of one with his accuracy, his ability to run. And then he didn't have a weak arm by any means. It wasn't elite, but it wasn't weak. So, Steve Young had plenty of athletic gifts that made him as great as he was. 49ers breakdown. So weird that you sent a super chat, and on everything before the show started, I have all my hats here, and 49ers breakdown 18 months ago probably sent me a hat that, has 49ers breakdown on it. And I'm going through the hats trying to figure out what I'm going to wear. And I picked that one up and almost put it on. And then I thought to myself, gosh, I haven't seen 49ers breakdown in a long time. I hope he's okay. And here you are, dude. That's absolutely crazy. That thought just went through my mind tonight. Glad to see you. He says, pressure the passer, win the turnover battle, run the rock equals 6 rings. God bless you, bro. God bless you as well. Glad to see you in the chat, my man. And Bobby L, I'm just going to call you Bobby Lee because that feels right. Peeps forgot that Purdy won 2 playoff games as a rookie. Yeah, it does seem that way. And that's what happens, though, over Wild Card Weekend. When the number 1 seeds, this is an interesting thing. When the number 1 seeds don't play, everybody forgets. And somehow the teams that won last weekend all of a sudden are super scary to the number 1 seeds, and quarterbacks have passed other quarterbacks, and we forget how good the number 1 seeds truly are. I think both of them are going to be able to win this week, but that's normal. What have you done for me lately? And they haven't played.
People are questioning Purdy, his ability to win in these type of situations. Like, dude, we saw Jimmy Garoppolo play as bad as like you can play, and the Niners were winning playoff game galores. Like this isn't like rocket science here.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
like Purdy needs to play like, an MVP for them to win. Like they won with Jimmy Garoppolo playing, as bad as it can get. Like it got pretty bad with Jimmy Garoppolo in the playoffs and they were still winning.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Then he handed
absolutely.
the Super Bowl away to the Chiefs.
Well, yeah, don't remind me of that, Krug. I was a little happy tonight.
That first turnover in the first half where he's got Chris Jones basically on his face mask and he just kind of floats it to the sideline.
Or,
that was a train
or
wreck.
how about 3rd and 5, right? You got a 3-point lead in the Super Bowl. George Kittle, you call arches. George Kittle is wide open in front of your face, seemingly the Niners' best offensive weapon. And he closes his eyes and throws the ball outside to Kendrick Bourne. Like what? The guy who never throws the ball outside of the numbers. He's got a guy in between the numbers open in front of his face. Like, damn. Or how about, dude, don't even get me started on that Super Bowl. How about the number of throws that he threw to the ground or he threw behind the receiver, all that? Like, people are talking about him as a Super Bowl MVP in that game. Nick Bosa, if he got, you know what? In fact, there's a part of me that's like, holy crap, I'm glad they didn't win that game. No, there's no part of me that actually thinks that, okay? That's messed up. But there's a part of me that's like, holy crap, they didn't win that game because if he got Super Bowl MVP, it would have been the most disrespectful award for him to get since Julian Edelman won Super Bowl MVP in 2018. That was like messed up. Nick Bosa had one of the greatest games for a defensive lineman I've ever seen in my life. And they were talking about giving this guy a Super Bowl MVP because he was 19 for 21 with 19 of his completions being inaccurate.
Seriously.
Going off. Ready, Set, Rush says 49ers Super Bowl favorites at plus 175. Ravens are next at plus 275. Yep, that's still the case, as they should be. Fellas.
I don't think the Ravens, whether Houston gets them or not, I really don't think Ravens are going to wind up in the bowl.
Yeah, we'll see. I think that was the whole reasoning, right? You looked at the Ravens team beating the 49ers, and then you're like, how are the Ravens not the favorite? They're the best team right now, which is true. But the path to the Super Bowl was so much clearer for the 49ers than it was the Ravens. That's why the 49ers should be the favorite, because out of the teams in the AFC, if I told you Buffalo, Baltimore, or Kansas City made it, I don't think anybody would be shocked at any of those three. But if I told you the 49ers didn't make it, we would all be shocked. So
there'll be a lot of criticism for Shanahan if the 49ers fall short. There's no question.
It would get so ugly. Like that's I will say this, and this is like a personal feeling about content and fandom, and maybe you guys can agree with this. I don't necessarily know. I think Jesse, you're probably closer to my frame of mind on this just because we have such a similar background on how we got into this crew. You're like a true professional, like this is your career. But I just feel like the content.
I've never been called a true professional before, but thank you.
I mean, you did just say Did you say dossier?
Dossier.
I did. I dusted that off.
Yeah, like,
I was.
You did pull it out.
But I had a thesaurus next to me this afternoon.
Okay. You're like Stephen A. You read a thesaurus for fun so that you can improve your vocabulary.
I could drop Pequint before the end of the broadcast.
Okay, I'll stay tuned for that. But like, dude, the conversation, and I don't know how you guys felt, is just like, okay, I have to talk about something I love, which is football, and then I have to talk about something that I'm very passionate about, which is the 49ers. The conversation this offseason was hard in a lot of ways because there were so many conflicting opinions. And you had your own opinions about it, but there were also opinions that were just difficult to talk about. Not because like, hey, this is something that's difficult to talk about. For me personally, it was because like, this is something I'm passionate about. This is a team I love. And this conversation is so toxic in a lot of ways. And I don't feel like I can voice myself with great clarity about something I truly enjoy and love because there was a constant back and forth. And there was a constant, like, I'm insulting somebody who plays for the team I love in some capacity. And so, for me, like one of the things I've enjoyed since week one is how united this season has been, right? Like there's been moments where some people, and I find it kind of miserable as a fan, but again, people express their fandom in different ways where they go back at somebody like, yeah, you didn't call this. Like, dude, enjoy the fact that the Niners are so good. Enjoy the fact that they're playing so well. Like, why do you need to rub it into the guy who called it wrong? But maybe I just don't understand that. Maybe like you do need to rub it into the guy that was wrong, and you have to do all those things. But like all of this good that we've built up, how enjoyable this season has been, how enjoyable it's been to talk about this season, how enjoyable it's been to stream about this season. It'll all be so brutal, so toxic, so nasty if they lose a game before the Super Bowl. And that's just because the expectations are so high at this point. We look at this team, we think they're so good. We look at the competition and we think they should run through this competition. Not run through in the sense that like, oh, they should beat every team by 30, but run through in the sense that they're better than everybody they should, theoretically go up against until the Super Bowl. And if they lose before then, like we go straight back to that negative. I will say this. Again, true professional. Jesse, maybe you can attest with this a little bit more. But if we go there, man, it'll be tough for me personally to sit and talk about it objectively, because we would be at a point where the conversation would take everything that's happened for 17 games and just go real nasty and get away from that, which will be really frustrating to talk about the entirety of the season. It'll be hard for me. That's just a personal thing, but yeah.
No, I agree wholeheartedly with that. Definitely echo those sentiments. And luckily, the 49ers are going to be just fine, and that's not going to happen. So
the hardest thing about it, not to interrupt, the hardest thing about it is that I really believe that Shanahan's a really good coach, and I really believe that Purdy's a really good quarterback. So, man, it is going to be very, very difficult because the way these things go.
Right.
The quarterback and the head coach wear it for everybody else, almost irregardless of the narrative of the game. So, the Niners could have like one thing that's really kind of a concern is that the 49ers spent those 3 picks on Trey, and at least 1 or 2 of those picks probably would have gone to offensive linemen. And instead they're in their moment with all these awesome weapons, with these great defense, with this, good young quarterback and a good, really explosive offense. And they're operating behind a line that's just kind of decent, and they may lose. And if they lose, it's probably going to be because they turned it over. And if he turns it over, it's probably going to be because he's under massive rush. And the off-season story, whether the Niners win or lose, is going to be upgrading this offensive line. So I just hope that they can get the Super Bowl that they covet, that they seek, get that 6th Lombardi, and build this offensive line up in a celebratory way, as opposed to lose again. Shanahan's not him. He's on the hot seat. Brock's not him. And in reality, it's this offensive line probably wasn't good enough. And that's my concern.
I'm 100% with the second part of what you said, because if it goes to offensive line, right, it's not that toxic of a conversation. But here we are,
but it won't go. It won't go there.
Right,
That's the part. It's not going to go there.
Season,
it's
all
not.
of us are acknowledging, like, hey, this guy has played so well at quarterback. He's played so well better than anybody we've seen play for the 49ers. There's like a lot of positivity surrounding that, right? And I don't mean this to say like I think they're going to lose, right? I just picked them to win by 15, 20 points. But if they do lose, all of those things that are objectively true about this football season all of a sudden turn into moot points. And we'll have people saying, oh, Jimmy won playoff games with this team. And that's the kind of like dishonest BS that I think would make them losing any time before the Super Bowl so frustrating for myself. And I would say that frustration comes from me being so wrapped into this as a fan. But like when we start to, and it's what you described, Crew, right? The quarterback and the head coach wear this. And when the conversation will, because if they lose any point before the Super Bowl because the expectations are so high, the conversation will start to get a little dishonest, in my opinion. And maybe for someone else, like that's the honest conversation. Like Shanahan isn't it? He should be fired. All of that. For me, that's a dishonest conversation. I don't see the logical flow to argue that unless you're just living in the moment and living off of every result and just taking that momentum to drive every single opinion you have. And dude, I don't know how you guys feel looking forward to that, but like just as the fact that we stream together and we stream, in some capacity every week with different people and all of that, like for me, before the Super Bowl, just as a fan, and this is just very real and raw for me, it would be something like really hard to deal with to be able to come back and have those kinds of conversations after this year, because I don't know that I could sit here and rationally tell you like, hey, no, that's not true. Like, here are all the reasons why Brock Purdy played well. Here are all the reasons why Shanahan coached well, because I would just be so frustrated that one game took this season to this dark, twisted, toxic road. And it's like I'm rooting for them to win, not just because I love the 49ers, but almost
But you don't want to
because,
have
like,
those conversations either. Yeah.
dude,
I feel
yeah,
it.
those
Let's
are
be
like,
honest. Let's be honest. The support for both Shanahan and for Purdy is kind of grudging in some. People are grudgingly supporting those guys to some degree, and ultimately it could. I hope I don't have to go into my. Guys, we really
Gerald
could use.
Hodges.
We could use another offensive lineman, man. John Feliciano's a hell of a player.
What
but
about Gerald Hodges?
He's
He's a
torn
good
his
backer?
ACL. And, Colton McKivitz is not him. And I've said it. I told all you guys they need more linemen.
Lowry.
I told Vish. I told Jesse. Gotta get an offensive tackle.
What do you think of Gerald Hodges, though, Lowry?
He's a hell of a backer. He misses a lot of tackles. And, there's no question that he's not really that good. But I do like showing public support because I picked him, damn it.
Well, I'll say this. First of
He's
all,
a hell of a backer. He just misses a lot of tackles.
He's a hell of a player. He just misses tackles.
I think where you had it wrong, Larry, is you said that the 49ers with those Trey Lance picks would have had, maybe some better offensive linemen. I think they would have had one hell of a defensive line if they didn't have those
probably
picks.
True.
If they would have spent those picks on defensive linemen, because we know that's where they would have really gone. But when I look at the 49ers, and I tweeted this out before the season, and I said it before the season, at least for me, here's what I can promise. If they were to lose Saturday or what have you, I refuse to hold accountable the quarterback who is in his first full year starting.
Right.
I can't do that. It would be unfair. I won't go to lengths. I won't. It doesn't matter. I mean, he's still in his first year start. If Larry, he could throw 7 picks. He could have a Brett Favre versus the Rams playoff game, and I'm not gonna blame him for the season falling apart. He didn't choose to start himself. He did everything he was supposed to do. He's had a great season, and he's in his first full year starting. Like, it wouldn't be fair to put all that on him.
You're not going to change the memory of what this season was, right? Like, if he throws 3 picks, he had a bad game. That doesn't mean that he was Jimmy Garoppolo for the 17 games this year. That's what's going to, like, really just make me like lose my mind, because like we just saw 17 games this year. Okay. Don't change the narrative of what the 17 games were because one game didn't go his way. And that, oh my God, Larry, if that happens, I might like blow a gasket.
But what I will say is, and I'm also not going to go fire Shanahan either, because who the hell are you going to get that's better, especially this late in the process? But I probably will put a lot of it on Shanahan, and he is the one that I think needs this more than anybody. Not to prove that he's a good coach, because we all know that he's a good coach, but he has to get off the schneid. And there is a scenario where people will absolutely, you want to talk about losing their mind. How about you give the 49ers a 10-point lead going into a fourth quarter and they lose? How do you think people will feel then about Shanahan? That's worst case scenario. Actually, out of all scenarios, that's a worst case scenario.
For me too, as a Shanahan defender, and as an avid fan of the guy, regardless, outside of the 49ers, I mean, a fan of a guy that would just be holy cow, you won't see me for.
Yeah,
I might take another 6-month hiatus.
That would be so painful. So painful.
We have some really funny super chats to get to, but we got to get through this one here. This one is a serious question. I'll give you one. I'm not going to give you 3. For me, Brock Purdy, the biggest thing that he needs to work on, the biggest thing I thought last year he needed to work on was stepping up in the pocket and not bailing out of the backside, and he did that. The biggest thing he needs to work on now, and this is still going back to him in college, and you see it at times this year when some of the best weapons are out, he does play hero ball still. And I think he's got a little bit of recklessness to his game. And the more he can tighten that up and play within who he is and within what this system is, I think the better off he will be. I'm not saying don't go make any plays. That's not what I'm saying. But there are times he does get reckless with the football, and those are things that cannot happen. So that would be the biggest thing for me that he needs to work on. Larry, what would you say? Give me one, and then Vish, you can give one.
I'll say, just kind of, you said reckless. Patience would be one, but to me, it's more just his body. The one thing he had to spend this year getting healthy in the offseason, and he just needs to work on his body the same way that Tom Brady was a better athlete in year 3, 4, 5, 6 than he was in the first couple of years. This guy's going to be a better athlete too. He just needs to work on getting his body stronger, more explosive. He's got it all here, and he's got it all here. It's just about, can he get a little bit more arm strength? Can he get a little bit more explosiveness? Can he get a little bit more athleticism? And I think it's in there. It's just a matter of spending the time and doing all the drills and getting yourself a little bit, like when guys get, what's the difference between year 1, year 2 for almost all football players? They get a little bit more sudden, a little bit more short area explosive, and and a little stronger. And that's all I would say for him. Nothing crazy, just that.
Yeah. In terms of what I think he could improve on, like, sure, like I agree with Larry that like all small aspects of his game can get like better. If I would say like one thing in general, it's just when I feel like the Niners have to drop back, and this might be like an entire situation thing. This might not just be a Purdy thing, but I feel like there's a little bit of inconsistency to how their offense operates when they simply have to just drop back and pass. And the offense loses. A lot of people go, oh, the offense loses its creativity. No offense is that creative when you're just dropping back to pass. It's very hard to have this run pass balance and have this run pass mix to that. I think there's an element of quarterbacks constantly improving when they have to play in those situations, just knowing where to go with the ball, which Purdy does seem to know most of the time, but just being able to consistently make plays from those situations and have poise in those situations. The thing with Purdy that makes it hard for me to say he needs to improve there is just, we just haven't seen him there that much, dude. So it's like almost like me saying like, dude, improve on something I haven't seen you do that much. But I would say for Purdy on the whole, like that would be something that I would like to see, because I think for me, the miss is like, he's evidently an excellent quarterback, but the miss is for me when I think of him as an excellent quarterback versus the top quarterbacks in the league. And I mean top quarterbacks by like the top like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. A lot of people go the physical traits argument, and I think that's an aspect of it. But the other aspect of it to me is when they have to play in these situations, it's still really natural, right? I've been a Matthew Stafford guy for so long, and it's never been like, oh my God, Stafford has one of the greatest arms ever. That's a part of it. But part of the conversation is I've seen that guy drop back when all he can do is drop back in situation after situation and handle pressure, handle bad protection, handle bad receivers, and just drop back and make throw after throw after throw. And I don't know that I would call him a quarterback that's the best in the NFL, but I just brought him up as an example to say, like, that's the little thing that differentiates a guy that's very good to a guy that to me is the best in the league, like a guy that's different from other guys. And so I guess for Purdy, as much as any quarterback in his situation, I would say like that's the one thing I want to see, where if they put you in a situation that you got to drop back, it's not just that I feel confident that you're going to do the right thing. It's that when things aren't necessarily going like the way they should, and the protection is not necessarily perfect, and, you know, the receivers aren't necessarily as good as you wanted, like you are able to handle that situation. And the frustrating thing for me is I say it as a thing he could get better. He might already be there today, but I don't know if he's there today because we just don't get to see it.
Well, there you go. There's your 3. Fish and Chips says, Vish, get a neon sign. Jesse, sort it out.
That's crazy.
I love how he's just like, you sort it out, Jesse.
Don't make
Jesse,
me
get Vish a neon sign. Thanks.
Don't make me switch this to a Packer postgame show.
Oh God, don't do it. Don't do it.
Whoa.
Whoa, come on.
Whoa.
Jeez. You
Now,
almost
Hey
got
guys,
kicked
I
out of the
really,
stream.
you see
Jordan
the
Love is
subtlety in that
him.
one, Drew?
And nobody can coach like our guy Matt LaFleur. Yeah, that's my Kenny Clark jersey back there, baby. I love Kenny. No, that'll be nice.
Samir says, okay. But if you're asking about the Bucks playing in Detroit weather, you don't know ball. Nice.
You know what's funny though, Jesse? You saw the subtlety there. If you missed it, this is where analysis comes. You know, it's not just that we analyze football, but we see the subtlety in Krug wanting to flex the fact that he's got this versatile light, right? He's got this light that doesn't just line up as the X receiver. It can also line up in the slot. It can line up as the flanker as well. And he just subtly put it in there, like, oh, look at me turning my green light on. I see you. Krug.
Hey, Amon Ra is the man. All right, and I've always said it.
Go. Look at this. He goes right back to it.
I'm a big Christian Watson fan.
Light.
Go Watson. Okay, there you go.
I'm doing it too. We're going all Green Bay back here. Check it out.
Look at that.
There we go.
Wait 1 second. Let me do it too. 1 second. We're going all Raiders here. We're back.
We're back, baby. Nice. Okay. All right. Frank Tom Ocean says, great show, studs and Larry. Laugh out loud. Just joking.
Right.
Go 49ers.
I'm prolific. You don't know how prolific I am. I've got 4 kids that I know of.
Oh, wow. Fish and Chip says 29 years, too long. Wow. Time is now. Yeah, I know. You caught that one a little late.
Like that? You like that?
69ers.
2 drink minimum.
69ers says he agrees with you. He says he wants to see Brock put on some 10 pounds of muscle. All right.
Do you guys wait? I'll ask you this. Do you guys think he's got the frame to do that? To me, he looks pretty maxed in his frame. Like
I think his upper body, maybe.
You think so?
But his lower body's pretty thick.
It's not really about weight. Yeah, because he is. I think you're right, Vish. I think he might get a little too stiff. But if he put on a lot of weight, and then if he puts on weight, then all of a sudden you got maybe plantar fasciitis issues. I'm just saying, just all that short area explosiveness and kind of
maximize it.
You know, your man strength as opposed to, I mean, just look at Brady. I mean, look at Brady and the kind of the way he reshaped himself. I think Brock's in better shape than Brady was coming out of Michigan.
No, way better shape.
But that's just a little bit more explosive, a little bit more sudden. Just, you've seen it from other guys. It's natural. And these guys spend so much time working on it. It's almost inevitable.
Krug, next time you're in the locker room, ask him what kind of ice cream he eats. Then we'll know. We'll know for real.
What? I don't get it.
Oh, you don't know about Brady and the avocado ice cream?
Oh, I got you. Yeah. Okay. I didn't see you working there.
Steve M says, Vish, I received the script from the NFL last night. Spoiler alert, it ends with red and gold confetti raining down on Allegiant Stadium. Grab some popcorn, strap on your seatbelt, and enjoy the ride. Faithful. I feel like that's very fitting to do it in a Raider stadium. Saying.
I'm just saying my imagination in 2019 was like I could picture in my mind the America's game that would come out in 2020 about the 2019 49ers. And I'm picturing the same thing about the 2023 49ers. I will say, Steve M, I love the script reference because that's something I definitely text my friends during the game. Like, yo, like Goodell has come through with this script. Or when somebody comes back, it's like, hey, somebody from Buffalo Wild Wings made the call. So I love the reference.
Here, if the Niners did win the Super Bowl, I did this the other day with Raj. Like, what would the celebration be like? Because we never talk about it because we don't want to jinx it. But the guys, the worst guys talking would be Jed, Bosa, right? Bosa doesn't say anything interesting ever. He's just I just got to lift and eat chicken and whatever. I got to eat rice and lift more. But I'd like to see either Brock talking, Kittle. It'll probably be Bosa, CMC, or Jed. I think I'd want Kyle, Brock, or Kittle.
I want Debo, Kittle, Trent Williams.
Trent Williams would be great too.
Yeah, they're going to hype up the crowd. By the way, if they do win the Super Bowl, I'm gonna book my ticket.
Warner,
I'm gonna
maybe.
come to California. Let's do it. Big Show edition parade. Parade edition.
Ooh, I like it.
Ooh, the parade.
I'm coming to that parade. Are you not going to that parade?
Oh, are you kidding me? I want to be
My
in the
parents
damn
wouldn't let me
parade.
miss school in 2016 when the damn Cubs won the World Series.
I'm
They're
gonna
like,
be
oh,
driving.
school is so important. I walk into AP chemistry. There's 2 people in the class, me and the teacher. Everybody else went to the parade.
I'm gonna take my Chevy Tahoe and try to dress it up and drive in the parade.
Derek Dawson says, I'm picking the Texans. And you guys have some upsets. 69er says Purdy can take a year off and get height surgery. Yeah, but then I think that would mess with his mobility. I wouldn't recommend it.
What's height surgery?
You didn't like people are like getting this height surgery. It's like, I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. Anyways, fish and chips.
Sounds dangerous. Sounds
very dangerous.
You may want to just pull governor of Florida and just wear high heels.
Fish and chips. Boss drops truths on the podium. Easter eggs. All right, listen.
What?
Who's
if
boss?
He meant Bosa. If I don't end it now, it'll keep going. And it's already gone 30 minutes past when I thought I was going to end it. It's 12:30. Love y'all. Stay blessed. Be back soon. Go 49ers. Peace.